Okay, got the red smoke.
Gun runs north to south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby. Give it to me. I need it. You're cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
What do they generally want? Well, I mean, we'll get into what you do, but I'm curious. What, for call it a high net worth person, what do they want when they call?
95% of what I do now is educational, to be perfectly honest. Like either something's gone wrong,
yeah,
or I need to explain something to them. Okay. Because, my role has changed, in the last 3 years. And so moving into being a vendor from being, an end user or security director, my role changed drastically. So it used to be they called me for everything, Hey, I'm going in front of the Senate. Let's talk this through, like wild stuff. Hey, I'm going to Columbia. What do we need to do? What are we looking like? So it'd be real time, updates, things like that. Yeah. Now I have a director in charge of every client. So all their, kind of tactical things like the day-to-day operations is handled by the director. I'm just there as oversight, and, if they want to reach out and talk to me, then I'm there. And a lot of the time it's like, hey, your team's doing amazing. We just had that last week, which is really cool. So.
Yeah. Well, it's better than the other call.
Absolutely.
What is the relationship you have with the woman who first reached out? Does she work for you? Is she a booking agent?
No, just booking agent.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't mean it negatively in any way. I just didn't know how to refer to her professionally. So when she first reached out, it was about a week after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And it took us a little bit to sit down together, but here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
So what I don't ever want to do is ever Monday morning quarterback anybody, but that situation was a nightmare. And I wanted to open with, if you're good with it, just talking about the absolute complexities of protection in an environment like that, especially when you don't have law enforcement authorities.
Yeah, yeah.
Michael, pull up this picture, because I think people need to understand the complexities of what is involved with that. Because people will say, how did that happen? How could it possibly happen?
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't ever want to give anybody ideas, but I have some, which I will keep to myself. So... Okay, where do we have here? Let me orient myself. It's been a while since I've looked at the location of the shooter. Okay, so the shooter was in the viewer's right, looking down to the left. As somebody who, and we'll get into your background obviously, but let's just say you're very steeped in the personal protection world. How are you looking at this? Where do you, as a civilian again, and obviously they had law enforcement that was there, how do you guys start breaking this down? How do you even get to a place where you are approximating a level of comfort for somebody like Charlie, who was, depending on the lens that you're looking at, some people would say he was, I don't know what they would say. He was polarizing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can leave it at that. He was polarizing. How do you start this?
I mean, obviously the prep starts weeks in advance, doing your digital advance of the site, understanding the topo, understanding ingress, egress, all of those things that you can work on well ahead of time can be done so that when your advanced team actually hits the ground, you're able to understand what has changed since the pictures that you reviewed it. Now, as far as day of, there's always going to be those changes because of how they set up the venue, how they set up things. But keep in mind, we're talking about an individual here this isn't a large stadium, Yeah. We're talking about
it's actually really tiny. I mean, obviously this picture is from above, so things will look smaller, but the POV, the camera POVs, it makes it look like it was, Petco Stadium in San Diego.
Right,
and it wasn't.
Right. Yeah, exactly. The reality of the situation is you have an individual who had an escalated level of risk by their own admission, but at the end of the day, we're still talking about somebody who goes and talks on college campuses, right? There's no legal way for someone in the private sector to cover all the bases of risk that you're looking at in that picture. It's just, there's no legal way. You look at typical assets, let's say for a POTUS movement or something like that.
Oh, God.
The assets that are required to pull something like that in this venue are literally illegal for the private sector. Yeah. So what we have to do is we have to look at it from a place of creativity, not only from the adversary's perspective, but take a look at that and say, all right, how can I do the most good? You have to prioritize your resources based on what you have available, but also where you think the risk will most likely come from. And that's what that calibration happens every day out in the field. You look at teams that are working protectees all over the place. Politicians, vast majority of politicians didn't have protection. Now they're starting to have protection. Now they're having 1 or 2 agents on coverage. They're going and speaking to crowds that are larger than this.
That's thin, man.
That's very thin, but it's just not practical to say we can mitigate every single risk. So you really have to be creative, When you have an escalated level of risk, then take and increase your security posture where you can. If they wanted to add CS teams, if they wanted to add redundant layers, they literally couldn't because that was somebody else's jurisdiction, right? Yeah. So as someone in the private sector, you really have to be prepared to tell the protectee, this is up till this level is where I'm comfortable with. If it gets past this level, it's a no-go. We're not going to show up to this venue. We're going to have to figure out something else. And that's something that I think has been under discussed is at what point do you tell your client no? Because us telling the client no isn't something we want to do, but oftentimes that's exactly what we need to do to be able to develop a situation that we can actually protect them in.
This episode is brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee. Patriotism isn't a marketing trend for Black Rifle Coffee Company. It's the foundation of the company, and Black Rifle Coffee Company has built on it since day one. Their American roasted coffee not only fuels your day, but gives back to veterans, first responders, and their families with every purchase. Last year, they eliminated medical debt, helped build homes, provided for natural disaster response teams, funded education for the children of fallen warriors, and so much more. So as America hits its 250th year, BRCC is kicking off 2026 with killer new products. And the same great mission they've had from the start. Grab a bag or a box of Tactisquatch, Waken the Neighbors, or Spirit of 76. Roast for people who get up early, train hard, and don't quit. And to fuel the new year, they're dropping cold brew coffee cans in just black and vanilla. No fluff, no excuses, just caffeine. Need something with even more horsepower? Grape X brings 200 milligrams of caffeine, zero sugar, and Grape Blast that hits harder than a door charge. Find it at Walmart, Target, Kroger, or blackriflecoffee.com. Black Rifle Coffee, veteran founded, American roasted. This is America's coffee. Yeah, I can see somebody who is writing the check saying, well, that's not what I pay you for.
Absolutely. And I've heard it. And if they say that, then that's fine, and there's ways of going about it to social engineer the conversation. That's why relationships with your protectees is so important, so they understand that you are doing everything to make it happen. But at the same time, if you have a risk that's identified, if you have a no-go situation and you're saying no-go and they want to go anyways, then that's what I call an unsustainable risk level. We talk about risk levels from a protective intelligence standpoint, and we like to allocate risk into categories, try to keep it under 5 and everything like that. I have a category called unsustainable, and that's where you take and you say this is where we throw everything in the kitchen sink out there. Unsustainable is where it's like an all call, all resources, everybody we can get, any mutual aid, anybody that we can call in a favor. Can we get any resources beyond what is currently allocated? Because you're going into a situation that you can't control. You have to have an unsustainable level of protection in order to sustain their protective posture.
Given what happened that day, I have to assume that rippled through your industry.
It was insane.
What I mean, as that day played itself out, how did it go out in real time? And then what have the cascades been that you've seen in changes?
We've seen an unprecedented number of attacks on principals in the last 18 months. Charlie Kirk was different because people that didn't know Charlie Kirk felt a personal level of vulnerability. Protectees who had never had protection before all of a sudden said, wow, I could be visiting my daughter on campus and I could get popped. I could be going to a campaign event and I could be, assassinated. The personal level of interaction that protectees felt, that resonated through the entire world. People with a protective posture that have been hesitant to add to the team or have someone beyond their, residential coverage, have somebody in the field actually doing close protection. People all of a sudden became aware that, wow, My risks are actually real. I like to say that both the UHC and Charlie Kirk and New York Tower incident really.
What's UHC again?
United Healthcare CEO Thompson.
Yeah. Did he have a protective detail of any kind, or was he solo mission out there, just Jason Bourning it?
He had a protective detail on the books. We know locally. I can't talk about what was that day because I wasn't there.
Okay.
But I do know that there was security, certainly inside the venue. From the hotel security, from working many events like that. There's absolutely a level of security that's there. It's just whether it's focused on the area that it took place. And,
if you go outside the bubble.
Well, and the reality of the situation is you look at the practical level of protective operations, and accounting for human nature is something we have to do all the time in our planning. And I'm not saying that this, by the way, is any way an influencing factor on the Thompson murder. But you take 6 o'clock in the morning in New York City on a frigid December morning, and you have people out there. You might have, if it was warmer weather, you might have had an advance agent ready to, receive your protectee. With a lot of financial events like that, there are advance agents that will receive. You might have had, somebody from physical security, from the site, a site agent that would have been outside for the arrival. You may not have, but the chances of somebody going out in the cold and waiting for a scheduled or unscheduled arrival from a protectee, that's pretty low, right? And so,
was he walking from his hotel to the venue?
That's what I've been told.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it happened on a public street, right?
Public street, right? Right. I've had events there many times with the different corporations I've worked for.
Yeah, I would say it would be almost statistically anomalous for somebody to sit there and wait like that. Crazy people do crazy things, let's be honest.
Well, Black Swan event for sure. But when you have an enemy that can choose the time and place, they don't need to know who necessarily. Keep in mind, Thompson was a sub-CEO. There were other CEOs, other people that were at that same venue who very well, could have. I don't think that there's any indication that anybody else was, and I don't want to, overstate that. But what I'm saying is a nefarious actor has the ability to choose the time and the place. And if they're choosing the time and the place, they don't have to get it right every day like we do. Every day when that protectee goes in and out, they're not the president. They can waive off their detail if they want. They can say, hey, I know I'm paying you, but I don't need you here, right? And then you go to whatever appropriate distance is, and your options for protection is limited. That's the difference between government details and private sector.
I have heard, and I'll just say this is unconfirmed, but I've heard that Bush Jr., when he would go to Texas, he would get on his bike and dip out on his detail and go into town.
Freedom, right?
Yeah.
Freedom.
Again, I don't know I want to believe that story because I think that's awesome, kind of, because nothing happened. I could also see that being a horrible nightmare. And also the shift leader going, I'm sorry, we can't find our protect.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the Hollywood details that I worked early on when I was in my early 20s was a 12-year-old boy that since he was born, he had 43 agents assigned to him.
What?
He just kept going through them because they'd get upset and they'd get, ticked off because he'd go jump out a window and go down to the park and play, and they wouldn't even know he was gone, It's
defeating the purpose a little bit.
Well, it is. And I went to it with a little different attitude. I was like, well, if you're going to jump out the window, let me know so I can jump out it with you, Yeah. And at least then I could stay with him. And as we went around the world to all sorts of crazy places, I was his adventure buddy rather than the leash that kept him from doing fun things, So there's a little bit of social engineering that you have to add with the protective posture just to be able to be allowed in a place. You look at most protectees today, they don't have board mandated programs. They don't have somebody saying you're going to lose your job if you don't have your EPTM on you.
How common is that where a board is that just for key personnel or?
Very uncommon. Okay. I think there's about 6 in the U.S. that I'm aware of, possibly more, but very few.
Okay.
And that is literally the closest to a POTUS level detail where they say you have to have this in place. You can't drive. You have to have somebody driving you. You have to have an agent with you 24/7 if you want to remain employed at the company. You know.
What was the event you were going to talk about that was before the United Healthcare? I interrupted you and I was asking what UHC meant.
Oh, yeah. It was after it, the New York Tower incident, where the NFL and the nefarious actor walked into the plaza with an AR-15, blasted up the New York Tower middle of last year.
God, how is this not ringing the bell?
Yeah. I mean, there's been quite a few. That one resonated only because it hit the financial sector, and a lot of unintended victims were actually victims in that case.
345 Park Avenue, Midtown Manhattan, killing at least 4 people. 6:30 p.m., striking a police officer and 2 found dead, self-inflicted wound. God,
one of the victims was Blackstone.
Oh, okay. Yes, I do remember this.
Yeah.
What you said that there has been an unprecedented increase in attacks on protectees in 18 months. What do you think kicked that off? Because that seems pretty precise that you're able to look back and kind of pinpoint that.
It's actually slightly spooky, to think back over that period of time. But I don't know what has necessarily kicked that off. But I will say that, in the last 2.5, 3 decades that I've been doing this, I have never seen the thin barrier to violence that we're seeing today. I'd say you can look at the 60s and the 70s where, you had people, that go out and shoot up schools, from the clock tower and they would do violence and they didn't have the conscience, right? That
Yep.
barrier to violence just wasn't there for whatever reason. And I don't know what happened, necessarily to say, this was the cause of it, but we kind of didn't have that. There was people, there were school shootings and things like that, but they weren't the high numbers of violent activities. And so that barrier to violence we're seeing now is razor thin. And that's why, we're seeing an increased cadence of people that it's like, you would not think this person would be someone that would go out, get a rifle and shoot at the president, but they did, Yeah,
I can't make sense of that either. I mean, it's partly tongue in cheek when I say crazy people do crazy things.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't really ignore the stats on it either. And, the tinfoil hat crowd would be, well, it's fluoride in the water. I'm not sure that it's not. I am not an expert on fluoride or teeth care other than brushing my teeth. But yeah, it's something that I certainly hope the trend doesn't continue to increase. I would hope it would go the other direction. But man, you look at the news on any given day right now, and it would indicate that it maybe is accelerating as opposed to decelerating.
Absolutely, because you look at the number of people that have something to lose, that whether it's polarized political figures, whether it's polarized, workforce, whether it's whatever it is, like people's skin in the game is only increasing, and you can also point and say, there's much more video games that are, causing people to pull the trigger a lot more, simulate it. You can go down that road. I don't know. I don't play video games, so I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But there's absolutely bad people doing bad things. And, from what we see from a protective intelligence side of things, a lot more bad people are trying to do bad things, but thankfully are being stopped.
Yeah. Michael, can you go back to the Utah, the Charlie Kirk event? I'm just curious. I mean, again, no intent whatsoever to Monday morning quarterback. It's always easier to look at this in the rearview mirror. If you could go back with a crystal ball knowing that something like that would have happened, what changes do you think that they could have made that would have been beneficial? Are we talking like getting a drone up and looking at rooftops? Even though it seemed... I'd be fascinated if they ever release a full investigation on this one, because it's like, this is logical, really big gap in any evidence or logic, maybe because it hasn't been released yet, right? I try to, if I'm going to wear a tinfoil hat, I try to keep it only like a beret, not a full three-piece suit, right? And then a little bit of logic, large gap. So maybe those things will fill themselves out. I'm not sure, and I'm not even going to hypothesize. But it seemed as if from the spot that the person was, they may have been able to have been seen, but like, what are you thinking about it that they could have done differently? Are you talking drones, put somebody on the roofs? What are your thoughts?
Well, I have the advantage of working in Silicon Valley for the last decade and a half. And one of the things that we leverage very effectively in our protective posture is technology.
Yeah.
So
how can you not? It's a force multiplier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So testing and evaluating different forms of technology, I don't want to go into exactly what should be used, but I will, say that protective agents everywhere have tools at their disposal to be able to use a combination of everything you just said. There's no single tool that would have stopped this incident from happening if it went down exactly like we've been told.
Yeah.
Right. But you use a combination of tools, combination of redundancy, combination of taking your advanced planning and combining that with your operations, then you reduce the avenues an attacker can get to you, and you increase your ability to get your protectee off the X.
Yeah.
Right. We saw post incident, the actions of the protective team were absolutely in line with what you would expect.
They were moving.
Right.
Yeah.
They were moving. They were coordinated. You can tell that team has trained. Right. And I think that for other teams out there, I think that we all have to take a look and say, all right, we need to train in more things. We have to be creative about how do we use technology with humans, with communication with the protectee, with understanding that if the AIC tells the protectee this is a no-go and the protectee says we're going, you're stuck, right? And I know of situations where that's happened in the past that's worked out fine. And I know of situations where that's happened in the past and it didn't work out fine.
How do you document that? Because I feel like there's a level of liability that passes hands when you say, we are able to protect you to this point, and the person says, did you get my last check? We're going. At that, I mean, again, I'm not a lawyer. I got my Juris Doctorate by watching Suits during the pandemic. But I would want to document that somewhere, somehow, because at that point, the responsibility has got to pass to the person making the call in the face of being told by professionals we shouldn't be doing this.
It does, but keep in mind, when you're talking about providing services for somebody, documentation is good for a lawsuit later on, and that does the protectee no good if they're deceased, right? So documenting it, being able to communicate it is important for the well-being of the protector. Right. Yeah. For me as a protector to be able to tell the protectee, this is my recommendations. This is what we're seeing. This is what Intel is telling us. This is what we need to do to keep you safe. Client says no. All right. At that point, I have to make a decision. Do I want to put my team into harm's way or do we do a full stop?
Have you ever heard of a situation where somebody refused to put their team?
Oh, absolutely.
What did the protectee have to say about that?
Blazing mad, and everybody's fired. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think my personal thoughts and I only have access to the social media stuff. My personal thoughts is he was probably pretty close to dead by the time he hit the ground. I don't think if he had fallen off of that chair into a surgical suite that they would have been able to save him. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a moot point, but I'm curious your thoughts as to how come they didn't have an ambulance staged?
Most of the time, having an ambulance staged is too expensive for somebody of that does college campuses.
Because you basically got to pay for their shift.
Absolutely, you're paying $6,000 to have that bus on site.
And this was the kickoff of his tour, right? He was gonna like I think in the high double digits, maybe like 50 of these in a row. Multiply that by 6. That's $300,000 in AMBUs right there. Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The other thing is with the majority of my teams, we have higher level of care than is on most ambulances. If you have a paramedic, bus, then that's great. They have the tools there. But, many of the teams that I've managed, are EMT or above. We have a lot of, PJs and individuals with higher levels of care that are already there. And so we integrate that with our planning to have our own resources on site, especially for the ultra high net worth individuals that can afford it.
This was a wound that was incompatible with life. Like
Absolutely.
I said, I don't think if he fell into with the highest level of thoracic surgeon, I'm sorry. In my limited experience, What are you about to hit? These guys are booking. I mean,
This is just
this is after. They're going to put him in the Suburban.
Yep.
Yeah.
You see the movement. You see the coordination. You know, like there's not chaos. You look at there's a
vehicles are staged, ready to go. Yep.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
mean,
the vehicles were also staged in that order from what they said afterwards to prevent somebody from ramming from behind.
Yeah.
Which I think somewhat effective. You could argue a different formation for that, but again, that's Monday morning quarterbacking.
Again, yeah, and that is absolutely not what I want to do. I mean, they did the best that they could, and again, they were constrained. Again, they're not. I'm sure some of them could carry based off of former or current law enforcement creds, but there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
HR 218 is a beautiful thing, but it only gets you so far.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And they were moving, they were coordinated. You look at a lot of other AOPs and you don't see that level of coordination. You don't see that level of consistent training. You don't see that level of dedication to the trade craft.
Yeah.
I
hadn't thought about the cost of having the AMBU there. Do you think that the city charges them for the cops on site?
I don't know in that case. Most of the time with my protectees, it depends if they're celebrity or ultra high net worth. If it's a company event, then we'll pay anything that we can. Most of the time it's ODOs, off duty officers that will pull in. The actual venues for like college campuses, typically they'll allocate a certain number of their officers, towards it depending on the crowd size, But again, you're talking about reactive officers. There's a different security posture when you're talking about proactive protection versus reactive law enforcement. The law enforcement officers are there to enforce the law. That is what they are focused on. They're there to document, to stop, lock bad people up. They aren't there to proactively look for anyone who would be a nefarious actor. And that's why we have to really account for that we have those local LE resources, but we can't expect them to do something that's out of line with their job, right?
What do you think that event will change about a public venue like that, open air? They were in the low ground, not that they meant to be. It's just, I mean, that's where they put it. I had heard that he had conversations about potentially wearing body armor in the future. It wouldn't have made a difference in this anyway. I mean, are you thinking they'll move stuff like this indoors? Do they put up ballistic shields in front of him? I mean, what do you think is going to be the landscape going forward? He's not the only person who does this for a living.
No. And it's sad, because this, depending on how long, heaven forbid, it takes for the next one to happen, we see the security life cycle continue on, right? And bad things happen, like we saw it in YouTube in 2018 when that hit, the YouTube headquarters was shot up. We saw everybody in Silicon Valley and they wanted to have 2 guards on every building, 2 armed officers on every building. So they added all these resources. They were paying insane amounts of money to secure every building in Silicon Valley. Nothing happened for a while. The bean counters started doing their audits. They said, wow, we're spending way too much money. Let's cut. Nothing's happened for X amount of time. So then they cut, and literally then it goes back down, to lower levels. And then it doesn't go back up until the next cycle, right? And the difference between, kind of that era, 2017, 2018, and now is the cadence of attacks on principals has increased in the last 18 months, really since Butler, that is keeping it at the forefront. So you're not seeing budgets get cut. So depending on how long, the teams are able to kind of illustrate their contribution to the overall success of the organization, then I think that there will continue to be funding in place for programs like this. But you look at your average political event outdoors, that's moving indoors. That's already happened.
I mean,
right?
it takes largely, not the whole threat away for this type of what happened in Utah. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're taking a lot of angles off the table, which helps.
Yep. Yeah. You can control your elevation. You can have someone with the high ground in an indoor space that has, a good visual of the high ground. You can integrate tech with it. Yep. You're seeing a massive increase in magnetometers and, crowd control and things like that at all these events. But again, how long does that remain sustainable becomes the question, right? Because that's all based on perceived value, the perceived value of each protectee for what they're paying. Yeah. And when they're spending, $4 or $5 million a year to have a team around them, they really have refined expectations of what they want, that team to provide for them.
I feel bad for that team, man. Those guys were all working as hard as they possibly could.
Did a lot of things right.
They did a lot of things right. But like you said, they have to get everything right every single time.
Yeah.
The YouTube aftermath of this event, the number of people what a sniper. He shot him in the neck. And so I went through sniper school in 2000. I like to claim I'm the SEAL sniper with the most confirmed misses because I can just slap a trigger like no. It's like just hold your breath until you gray out and then just really lurch with it. And I'm like, guys, I've never been taught to shoot somebody in the neck. Like this is not Jason Bourne. He was either aiming at the head and jerked it, or aimed probably center mass and got lucky. I hate to use that term.
Yeah, yeah.
And then just the debriefs afterwards, and it was an inside job from the security detail because the guy had sun in his eye, and they're like, that was the moment. I'm like,
that was the signal.
Do we have to do that? I mean,
yeah.
It's interesting. I've had some conversations with people, and I think a lot of it stemmed from they didn't feel like they could do anything, and they felt in some way that involving themselves in that way meant something. And I'm nobody to tell somebody how to live their life, so that makes a little bit of sense, but it also created this environment of what I'll just call utter BS that muddied the water so much that I don't even know if it's possible if an investigation does come out. Let me clarify this. I'm not saying by any stretch I trust our government at all. If an investigation, there's plenty of things that our government has done to erode just about every bit of faith and integrity that people have looking at them. So even if an investigation does come out, there is so much BS out there and so many people pointing at things and using the word truth. This is the truth. That is the truth. So now we can't agree upon the truth. So where are we? Even if it does come out, people will say, yeah, but you guys are the deep state.
Right.
And maybe they are, right? Depending on what your definition is, or you're the global cabal that meets on every other Thursday and in your robes with chicken heads in your pockets or whatever it is. So it was so... God, it was horrible to see. The worst thing about that for me is all three of my kids saw that on their social media, and not a single one of them was looking for it.
Yep.
So I had to have some very real conversations with my kids I didn't think I was ever going to.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Yeah, that's a heavy load for a kid. It's a heavy load for anybody.
It was unavoidable. If you were on an electronic device that day.
Absolutely. Everywhere.
I mean, I think I saw the first somebody sent it to me directly under... We're talking single-digit minutes before it happened.
Absolutely.
My response was, why did you send me this?
The same exact response. Why do I want to see this?
Yes.
Man,
I've seen enough of this in my life. I don't need to see that.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I'm not part of the solution, so don't bring the problem to me,
How'd you get into this world?
As it would happen as a teenager, I had this idea. I wanted to actually go into the teams, and I started doing underwater search and recovery diving, volunteering, just preparing. I was 16 years old.
The teams doesn't do a lot of that, by the way.
Yeah,
we've really transitioned out of the water.
Yeah, it would seem. It would seem.
God, you train so much in the water pre 9/11, and they're like, yeah, hang up the scuba tanks. We're going to two largely landlocked countries. Get some, which was. Honestly appreciated because the water is rough, but you might have dodged a bullet on that one.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
It's been wild to see, the full circle, because, what I thought was the career I wanted to go led me to executive protection, literally 16 years old, fell in love with the concept. They said, carry a gun, make money, travel the world, and I had no idea what that meant.
How'd you get exposed to it?
Literally doing PT in a park for dive school.
Really?
And there's three corporate agents that just happened to be doing PT at 6 a.m. in the same park, and then started talking about it. And I was like, wow, this sounds incredible, And so I started pursuing it. I had no way of getting into the industry, There's especially in the mid-'90s, there wasn't a lot of EP going on in, Eastern Washington and Whitefish, Montana. So,
which, by the way, it is wild that you're fifth-generation Whitefish, which for people who don't know, I record in Kalispell, Montana, which is 15 miles south of Whitefish. The fact that we are now reconnecting here, given what you do and where you live, is wild to me.
Yeah. No, it's insane. My grandma lives literally 3 minutes away from where we are right now. Like, it's amazing.
I don't remember it being, I wasn't paying attention. I was very front side focused about entering the military. But even when I was in the military, I don't remember it even being talked about much, except for in the movie The Bodyguard. I feel like, much like the movie Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen, that brought some attention.
It did. And still maintains the expectations of the vast majority of protectees. And that, my friend, is annoying.
Expect Kevin Dutton /
Yep.
Kevin Costner to show up.
Yeah. No, exactly. What's fun is some of my friends worked Whitney Houston during that period.
Stop it.
And so, like, literally, like my expectations of what, the EP industry would be these guys that are working Whitney during that period of time, as a young protector, and they continue to be my friends to today. But yeah, it's amazing how influential that was in shaping people's expectation of even the type of agents that they want,
That's wild. You were exposed to it in a random encounter.
Yeah.
In the park.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up a very simple life, no way of accessing anything, EP, started working security after I, fell in love with the concept, because I was like, I've got to do something, and I actually almost started working for Flathead County Sheriff's Office. My grandpa was lodge buddies with one of the guys, and I went through the whole process, and unfortunately, I told them I wanted to get into EP, so they wouldn't hire me, because they're like, you're going to work here for 5 years, and then you're going to go travel, move away on us. And so they didn't hire me specifically because of that. But it ended up working out well, because then the next year I moved to Hollywood, and the rest is history,
How does it start, though? I mean, I'm assuming you got to get your foot in the door somewhere. And probably, if it's anything like the new guy cycle I'm familiar with, not doing the sexiest jobs.
Oh, absolutely. So I went to ESI, which at the time there were 2 executive protection schools in the country. Okay. ESI in Aspen, Colorado at the time, and then EPI, which was East Coast.
How long are those schools?
ESI was 30 days.
Okay.
So 30 days of distance education and then 30 days in person, to where, when you went and basically you learn the fundamentals. You become familiar, how to talk, how to walk, what is involved. It's an awareness training is how I like to categorize it. The competence has to come later, because that obviously takes, a lot of time and a lot of refinement over the years.
Yeah. Okay. So you go to the course. Do you have a job with a company before you do that?
No.
So you're self-funding.
Oh, absolutely. I spent
selling plasma.
Yeah. Well, I started a landscaping business with my brother when I was 11, and so I ended up selling all the equipment from that, which paid the 10 grand for me to go to EP school.
Okay.
I left EP school with $43 to my name, drove to Hollywood, and just started knocking on doors. And who would hire me? Literally started guarding parking lots, as if $12 an hour, I think my first couple gigs, were, and just worked my way up, continued to use all my funding to pay for EP schools, shooting schools, every kind of school I could do. Paid my own way through. I think we have documented just under 500 grand in security specific training since I started. That's specific to what I do.
I have no real familiarity with the ecosystem out there of protecting high net worth people, but I have to assume there are categories or layers, like with your A-listers being up top and then guarding the parking lot. We'll call that maybe more towards the bottom. We won't call it the bottom.
Yeah, well, you got
closer. Well, a few more rungs down the ladder. I'm sure there's everything in between. How long does it take to go from that parking lot job to getting into those the A-list category? I'm assuming if that's what you went to Hollywood for, that's what you're probably trying to do in the EP world.
It was, because that's all I knew. I didn't know there was any other categories outside of that, And so it took me 9 years. Most of those years I worked for 29 different security agencies, picking up odd jobs. I worked the Academy Awards, worked the Oscars. Most people don't realize most celebrities don't have full-time agents working with them, especially at the time. They didn't. It's becoming more so now, because you have more billionaire celebrities. But at the time, most of my protectees didn't have full-time agents, especially beyond their residential details.
You just pick them up at the door, basically?
Basically, yeah. You either ride right front or meet them when they arrive at the Oscars, whatever the assignment might be, or on the movie sets, and then you meet them, when they arrive. and go from there. And so it took me 9 years of grinding, night shifts. I'd work 36 hours straight in Beverly Hills, drive back to Temecula where I was living at the time.
Beverly Hills. I'm very familiar with Temecula.
Yeah, exactly.
Call that Eastern LA basin for those of you not familiar. It is not under the Hollywood sign.
Yeah, exactly. And I would drive back and forth because I couldn't afford, to live anywhere closer, and I just kept building the momentum, kept building my training, kept focusing on, taking care of the people around me. I never said no to a job. That was the big thing, is I never wanted to say no to a job because I knew that if I said no to a job that they wouldn't call me the next time, and so that's where working 36 hours straight. This is before overtime rules kicked in. Yeah. It was just the hustle for 9 years straight before I got my first full-time employee opportunity working for a private family office in New York and Philadelphia. And that was my first big chance at the rodeo.
I think a lot of people, and I probably fall into this category. I've been fortunate enough to rub elbows with some people that others would consider to be, or I would consider to be on the A-list tier. And I think it's really easy if you see them on TV a lot to think that they are not normal people or that they don't have their weird quirks.
Right.
And unfortunately, I think most people, if they spent a lot of time around people like that, they would probably be underwhelmed more than anything because they would realize, crap, this guy deals with BS just like I do every single day. Was it kind of like that when you finally got into that A-list tier? Did you just realize oh, these are just people and whatever, they have a better bone structure or they can emote better in front of a camera, but they're still just people at the end of the day?
It was underwhelming. It was absolutely
it's
underwhelming.
Kind of what it is, right?
Yeah. Because you look at most of your 80s action heroes, were far shorter than I had imagined they were. Their biceps were far smaller than I had imagined they were.
It's all about camera angles. Notice that's what I was focusing on before we started.
Right. Let's get those right.
Don't forget lighting.
When I moved to Hollywood, I was 160 pounds, 6'1", 160 pounds. I was not a large person, I was in good shape, but I moved there and I was working an A-list celebrity on the residential detail. And the celebrity's sister came up to me and was like, "Caleb, I like you, but you're too damn small." And I'm like, all right, I'm working on it, You
do a quick trip to TJ, get some chicken breast.
I'm on it. So I built, for 10 years. Got up to 285,
That's almost on the other side.
That was on the other side. Then I moved to Silicon Valley and we're in a major Silicon Valley facility that everybody knows with two people that everybody knows. And they look over at me and, "Caleb, I like you, but you're scaring the hell out of everybody." And I'm like, I can't win,
285 is definitely the other side of the pendulum from 160.
Unhealthy.
Yeah.
Unhealthy. Took me 10 years to get there, but
that's about how long it would take you to do a 100-yard dash, too, at that weight, if you didn't have a myocardial infarction along the way.
I can do the dash just fine. I just can't stop.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet you have a collection of pretty awesome A-list stories. Obviously leave all names out of it, but what's just the wildest or weirdest thing that you saw when you were doing in that world, in Hollywood specifically?
Yeah, Hollywood. I was absolutely underwhelmed by my time there, because you would watch a historic film on the couch of a historic A-lister with their kids like it was nothing. And it was just like, yeah, we're doing this, and it's like, all right, that's surreal, but it's just normal. Right? It's just part of your normal life. There's just another human being interacting with them. And then you just go on about your day, or you're driving down the road and there's somebody broken down on the side of the road. And, literally you just had a stalker banging on your window in Santa Monica two blocks before. And they see somebody broken down. They're like, "Oh, let's help them." And I'm like, "No, I don't want to help them.
Yeah.
Let's help them. So you pull over and get out and like they want to push this person down to the next exit. So like get out there and push this person down to the next exit to get them off the highway. Like they're cool people, they're just eccentric, right?
Do you find most of them to be kind?
Depending on what time of day it is, I think,
or the setting they're in. I've seen some very interesting Machiavellian shifts from the private to the public persona. And I have never lived under that level of a microscope or scrutiny. Or I actually think I heard Ben Affleck say it once. He's like, listen, take the money, leave the fame.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And if you think about that, it's like, that's probably the move, actually. I'd rather have money and be a gray man than have money and not be able to go. Like I heard Troy Aikman, as an example, used to have to go clothing shopping in the middle of the night. He can't have a normal, when he was the quarterback for the Cowboys, he couldn't have a normal life experience because he was just going to get mobbed.
Yeah.
That's got to wear a little bit thin too. So I kind of can get, I guess, a little bit of the Machiavellian where they're in public and they're doing their thing, and then they get home and they're like, I hate everybody, I hate humanity, leave me alone.
Yeah. Well, and also Hollywood specifically, thrives on substances, right? And those substances introduce different challenges depending on what time of day it is, depending on what groups you're around, depending on what, venue you're in and all that. And so trying to, stay awake for 3 days straight when you have, something going on with zero breaks, zero backup, for me is a matter of slamming Red Bulls until, it's unhealthy. For them, it was titrating the solution based on the need,
Yeah.
And for me, that was a little bit, daunting because I'm sitting here thinking, all right, at what point am I going to have to Narcan? At what point am I going to have to
What's
render
your role
care?
there? I mean, obviously they're paying you to be there as part of your security. Are you just a fly on the wall hoping for the best?
Oh, absolutely. And hoping to not be harassed by
the Jekyll and Hyde that's getting ready to happen, depending on what it is they are injecting or snorting or swallowing.
Yeah. And it's like, I've never been law enforcement, right? So I'm a nobody from nowhere. So I don't judge anybody for anything that they do or how they do it, right? I'm just looking out for people's safety, right? And so when you're looking out for individuals who are living an unhealthy lifestyle, I had to come to a point to where I had to decide, all right, at what level is it healthy for me to be here? Because, these constant transitions, these constant ups and downs and, flailing and umbrellas and, everything under the sun, it's like, do you really want this to be part of your world? And that was thankfully where I found a lot more stability in the Silicon Valley and the family office founders and then in corporate.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, I feel like in Silicon Valley, in comparison to Hollywood, there's probably a massive wealth difference, but also a massive fame difference. There's people in Silicon Valley. I was born and raised in Santa Cruz, so just over Highway 17 from Silicon Valley. And I don't know any of those people. But you'd see the houses they'd build along the coast between Santa Cruz and Monterey.
Yep.
Like, did somebody just buy 3 oceanfront lots to destroy all the house that was on there and make a really awesome house, but also is kind of destroying history? Like, that just happened. I don't think that's cheap. But you would never know who the person is. So an immense amount of wealth, but probably a difference going back to that take the money but not the fame.
Yeah.
Did you find a difference in those people who perhaps had way more wealth but were not as well known?
Oh, 100%. Operationally, it created massive challenges for the industry as a whole. Because when I moved to Silicon Valley, we were used to traditional protection methods that you would see with somebody that had, fame, fortune, things like that. But then all of a sudden you have these people who are worth, 10, 20 billion dollars who nobody knows who they were other than the fact that they have 6 knuckle draggers walking around with them.
Yeah, all of a sudden they have a real tight diamond of guys with dark sunglasses on and stuff out of their ears. Like,
yeah.
It can be too much. You can actually draw more attention to yourself than you want, for sure.
100%. And that actually was a massive transition in my career. Up to that point, I had been working my way into management. I've been working my way to become a better professional. But I always had imposter syndrome, right? Like, I had wanted to be a SEAL. I had wanted to be this and that. And for me, I never felt like I had quite made it because all these people around me are incredible human beings. You have, Dev, you have, CAG, you have all these just incredible human beings that are working in Silicon Valley, alongside me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, who am I? I'm a nobody from Spokane. I quit school at 13, like I should not even be here. And then when it came time, when the client said, I like the team, I just don't want a bunch of knuckle draggers that everybody sees around me. And Caleb, who had no background, Caleb, who had no preconceived notions of how it should be done, no biases based on previous, occupations. Caleb said, I'm going to take and find a solution for this. So I worked with my chief security officer, and I proposed creating, 100% covert protection teams where we took and we combined the different styles of protection. We combined medical, we combined intel, we combined technology, we combined counter surveillance detection, and then they took all the best tactics we could from the clandestine world to be able to create a sustainable style of protection that had never been done in the private sector at scale before, not full-time teams working day in and day out. And that for me was certainly the biggest challenge of my career because the complexities, are massive. But it was also a, really watershed moment for me because it took and my imposter syndrome was no longer there because the innovation that was flowing was based on the context from my previous, decades in the industry, working in the field, working night shifts, figuring out what works and doesn't. But then I was able to fuse that together with some of the best human beings who had operated, all around the world, who then became part of my teams and then created a new trend in the protection industry.
So you created that system for yourself or while working for somebody else?
So I was working directly for a private family office.
Okay.
So I was full-time employee of the private family office. So I created it directly for the family that we were protecting.
And then turned it into a business model, essentially?
No, because after that, I started the program. After I left there, I started the program for PayPal, then went on to another family office, and then Salesforce. So it's not the only style of protection I've done, but it's had ripple effects in the industry. Tons of companies took what we started and then have carried it. And then obviously today, my company integrates it for sure, but I didn't start my company until 2023, So
wow, so that's relatively recent.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What was the impetus behind that? Working for other people to just saying, screw it.
Yeah.
You all work for me.
Well, I never wanted to start my own company. I owned a lawn service when I was 11 and my dad was an entrepreneur and tried so many different things that I had this kind of negative vibe in my head about it. And I wanted to be a, corporate executive, and so that's the route that I pursued. Literally my entire life plan from, this time I was 30 on was to pursue my education based on my goal to be a chief security officer of a Fortune 50 company by the time I was 50. So I wanted to give myself 20 years to be able to take and prepare. And so that's why I followed the educational path I went through Stanford and Johns Hopkins and all those to be able to prepare to go in that direction. Well, I ended up...
What kind of courses were you taking at those universities? I'm curious what they...
Yeah.
So a chief security officer, I'm assuming their role is largely in the title. Are they responsible for physical security of the infrastructure as well as, and making sure that key personnel have private security as well? Basically anything that touches the security world, that's what a CSO does?
Yep. Okay. Some companies, especially Fortune 50 companies, will separate out. So you have your CISO, your technology side of things.
Yeah.
And then physical security, your intelligence teams, your executive protection, all your site work. Alarms, things like that will typically fall under the chief security officer.
So what were you taking at Stanford and Johns Hopkins? I don't know a lot about college, but I recognize those two names.
Yeah. So Stanford has their International Security Graduate Program, which is incredible program. Just basically, from an engineering perspective, looking at risk as it relates to the global market. So we would take and do war games. We would take and look at security as it affected different portions of the world. And then if action was taken, seeing what the secondary and tertiary responses were to that. They didn't have a full master's program at Stanford. And so I applied to Johns Hopkins because, again, I quit school at 13. So because I hated education, like I hated school. By the time I was 30, my client had inspired me to go to school. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to try the best schools. And then if I don't get accepted, then I'll move on to the second best, And thankfully, both schools accepted me in. Hopkins has a full, master's program in global security studies and intelligence, and fascinating program. About 92% of the cohort is from the intelligence community.
I was going to ask you, who teaches these courses? What's the pedigree of the people who are up there at the lectern with, I would imagine, like a monocle on and a jacket with one of those watches that has a little loop chain?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Yeah, it's primarily intelligence community. Some of the psychological side is other people. But yeah, no, the campus is in DC.
Yeah.
It's very much intended for the intelligence community. But it was amazing for me because I wrote my master's thesis on the modernization of executive protection. What is the modern art of EP? Because everybody else is looking at it from, the government's perspective of security in the world, and what are the effects of water on security and all those things. And I was looking at it from executive protection standpoint of how do we protect protectees who are going into these emerging markets, who are going into these markets where they have risk. How can we look ahead and use our protective intel assets to be able to plot a path for us for that company's growth, so we can keep them safe at each stage rather than trying to come up with it on the fly.
Do you have a class that stood out during that time in education that was your favorite?
Honestly, my favorite was at Stanford, and it was where Dr. Perry, the former SecDef under Clinton, was talking about the history of nuclear proliferation.
He taught a whole class on that?
Yeah. It was incredible. Had guest speakers from Russia who were his counterparts.
What a course.
Fascinating. We have brown bag lunches and nobody show up at these lunches because they were optional, so it'd be like three of us, four of us sitting here, eating and just asking questions. And by far my biggest, treasured memory from that entire period.
What a fascinating course. It is wild how nobody would show up to the extracurricular and just sit there.
They didn't have to.
And pick the brains of a former SecDef. I mean, come on.
And he's so open with information, just truly wanting to share. You can see his passions, but also it's fun for him to sit back with his buddies and talk about, remember when, and you're talking, the end of the Cold War, you're talking about some serious buttons.
I love how they brought in or were able to link up the U.S. versus whatever axis they were going against. That to me, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
To come full circle for them to be in an educational environment, talking back and forth.
Yeah.
About each lens and what they saw.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Go to the brown bag lunch.
Well, and the thing that stood out to me was, these are just people. We look at it in history. We look at these, mutual assured destruction and everything that you see in the history books, it's people against people. And wow, let's quit fighting for Christmas. All right. That's humans, right? Yep. That's really what it did for me. My grandpa, worked for the railroad here in Montana, POW for 3 years, and the human factor during that era, in my mind, from my perception, hearing his stories, it wasn't humans, it was more like a robotic response to fear, and hearing Dr. Perry and his counterparts talking about it, it was humans talking to humans. And, they both had their side. They both had their priorities. They both had their allegiance. But both of them, absolutely at the end of the day were humans and just wanted to go have a beer with the other one.
It's wild. What was it that got you over the hurdle of deciding to start your own business?
So I was at Salesforce and had an incredible
security, I'm assuming.
Yeah. I was director of protective services for Salesforce, global safety and security over there, and amazing team. We had a lot of good things happening. It was in the middle of the Silicon Valley drawdown about 4 years ago, to where a lot of politics was going on. And I was surfed right through the politics and got picked up. Got hit by somebody else's politics, basically, is the easiest way to say it. And so I found myself unexpectedly, my boss didn't want to let me go, but, it was the end of the crunch. And it really boiled down to, what do I want to do next? I'd experienced corporate. I'd built, two corporate programs from scratch. I'd built, 6 programs in the industry. And I was like, my biggest frustration as the end user, as the director of security for, whatever client or corporation, has been my vendors. And so I was talking with Jerry Jacobs, one of my buddies who, had ran the California governor's details for quite a few governors. And we started talking about, well, hey, there's a better way to do it. Why
By
don't
vendors, do you mean the people who are providing the security personnel?
Yeah, the security company.
Okay.
The security company. Because like every detail I would start, you would hire X amount of agents, and you needed a security company for them to work for, and then I would pay as the family officer corporation, I would pay the security company a fee, and they would pay the agents, right? And so I was like, well, why don't we just create a better security company that isn't focused on shareholders? Because the majority of security companies right now are owned by venture capitalists and shareholders who they have to make their profits in order to be able to sustain things. Why don't we take and create a new way of doing it to where we say our employees are our shareholders, and we're going to take and we're going to build everything around developing them. So we're going to develop the next generation of practitioners. And that was the foundation for what we started through accountability, through training, through coaching. That's mandatory for every single agent on the team to become better week by week, month by month. But it's not a line item that the client has to pay for. That's what White Glove pays for. And so that's, we call it the White Glove difference. But basically, we hold people accountable on our teams, and then we give them profit sharing based on their ability to contribute to the protection efforts of the client.
Was it easier or harder to build and scale your company than you thought it would be?
I didn't really have expectations. What's been harder for me is to understand human nature. Because
let me know when you got that figured out.
My goodness. Like I was used to, for the last couple of decades, being the security director for XYZ Corporation. Everybody knew who I was. They associated me with the protectees and, corporations and all that. And it was like, oh yeah, that's the, PayPal guy or Salesforce guy or whatever. And then I started my security company, and all of a sudden they weren't taking my calls. All of a sudden I'd start getting ignored, and it was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like I've been having lunch once a month with them for the last 15 years, So it was a different phase in life, just kind of understanding that I'd crossed over into the vendor side, and it was at that point I said, I'm never going to try to sell something. I'm going to share the vision, I'm going to share solutions, but I'm never going to try to sell something, because that's not me. Nobody needs to sell what I have to peddle. I'm peddling the same thing that I've peddled for the protectees, for the last couple of decades, and we know it works, because some of the top teams in the world have been created based on these principles, because I had the privilege of being there, working alongside some incredible human beings. So that was really the biggest surprise for me.
Yeah, finding the right people, I feel like, is a challenge. This episode is brought to you by Brunt. How many people out there need a good set of boots? Maybe not professionally, even though there's a huge market out there for that, but personally. If you live in a place like I do, this type of footwear is, I'm not going to say mandatory, but it's helpful for about 6 months out of the year. And most people think that you have to choose between like this crazy durability and functionality and comfort. And that is probably what I like the most about these particular set of boots, at least the ones that I have. They sent me a set of the Omen boots, which is the first slip-on, like Chelsea-type boot that I've ever had. Of course, I'm not wearing them today, otherwise I'd be able to show it to the camera, but I ran out of the house this morning when it was still dark, getting my son to work. I thought there was going to be a break-in period because that was my history with other pairs of boots that I have ordered, and there wasn't. Right out of the box, true to size, super comfortable, and they've been my kick-around-town boot for the past 3 months since we've transitioned into winter. Maybe you've already got a good set of boots. You're not in the market for it. That's okay. Brunt is a lot more than just work boots. They offer a full range of high-performance gear built for tough jobs, from heavy-duty work pants to weather-resistant jackets. Brunt designs durable, reliable workwear to keep you protective and productive in any condition. If this sounds like something that could benefit your life, if a Brunt product, whether it be outerwear or bootwear, is something that you're in the market for, my suggestion would be head over to bruntworkwear.com. And if you use the code ClearedHot, you're going to get $10 off your first order. That is bruntworkwear.com. Using the code ClearedHot, you're going to get $10 off. Surf through the site, check out some stuff. What I will say about the boots is they are comfortable and true to size right out of the box. So you don't have to worry about a crazy break-in period, which has been my experience with most other boots that I have had. bruntworkwear.com, using the code ClearedHot. Back to the show. Other than human nature, what kind of, I don't want to say selection course, because that's not it. I think you know what I'm getting at, though. How do you know you have the right person?
Yeah. Yeah, the majority of the people that we hire have been working full-time in the industry for at least 5 years.
Okay. So slightly vetted at least by somebody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I spend about 30% of my time volunteering. So, the world's largest security organization, ASIS, there's 35,000 members. I'm the chair of the executive protection community. And then the largest executive protection specific organization. I'm the treasurer on the board of directors, IPSB. Those organizations, I spend a ton of time volunteering. What that does for me is it allows me to get to know more people in the industry. It really allows me to know who's working where, how they're doing, and watch people's trajectory. And so what has been incredibly gratifying for me since I started White Glove has been seeing the people that we've pulled in, especially our management roles, me having watched them for the last 10, 15 years, them come in and start thriving in their roles where they had been, previously either stagnant or uninspired, we'll say, So really my volunteering is I would say a secret weapon because it allows me to get to know people outside of the context of a job interview. Yeah. And have that extended interaction, watching them, staying in contact with them, from a networking perspective, certainly. But, just to see if they have the same vision, the same culture, the same drive, day in and day out as they do when they're applying for the position that they really want. How's
it been scaling your company?
Incredible. So grateful. We spent the first 14 months with zero profit. And
sounds fun. I'm familiar.
We were very strategic about what we wanted to focus on because most security companies go out there and they want to do everything for everybody, which is a great way to make money. But there's nothing different about that. And so we wanted to bring a paradigm shift. And so with White Glove, we only focused on embedded protection, full-time agents, full-time protectees, because having full-time agents is the only way that I can truly develop the next generation of practitioners. We put everybody through a 3-year training plan, right?
3 years.
3 years. Because if we're investing 3 years into them, we're putting a bet that their culture, their drive, their alignment, and their skills that we're helping them develop will be a long-term investment that will eventually return on White Glove, Yeah. And so that structured plan, again, that training is also tied to the profit sharing that each agent is eligible for after a year with the company. And so we're not only paying them to go train, but we're rewarding them on their ability to learn. One of the things that I'm sure you've seen throughout your career, but people either grow on the vine or they die on the vine.
For sure.
Right? Human nature is human nature. And we typically in Silicon Valley see people last maybe 3 years. Statistically speaking, 3 years in a position and then they move on. Right? We did a little bit better on my teams. We got 5.5 years, but really identifying what is it that keeps people inspired. It's not executive protection specific, but people in general, human beings need to be inspired in order for them to grow and develop and continue as a professional. And so we said, we want to do something different. And so we created what we call the Executive Protection Excellence Cycle. It's our way of saying, we're going to train, we're going to coach, we're going to develop, we're going to put it into a structured process where every single quarter from 0 to 100%, every single employee knows this is how I did, this is how I stacked up this quarter. And then based on that score of 0 to 100%, then that agent gets compensation based on how much money the company's made during that quarter. So it's our kind of carrot and our stick, right? Because if somebody gets 23% eligibility, that might be good for them, but we're also going to highlight, all right, this is where you can improve in. Yeah. Our goal is to help you get to 100%. That's our way of helping people grow, because as you continue your voyage in life, right? What is success?
Depends on who you're talking to.
Exactly. Success for me has changed at different iterations throughout my life. And so we try to say, all right, how can we take and capture success, but on a sliding scale as it develops? My clients, through the years have given me incredibly generous bonuses, annual bonuses. And I'm ashamed to admit it, but I would go out and I would spend that bonus. And I would think to myself, maybe 3 months later, when's the next one coming? You'd forget about it.
Well, at the end of the year, traditionally.
But realistically, they just gave me what used to be a full year's salary for me as a thank you. And not even within a couple months, I'm sitting here thinking, oh, when can I get the next tractor? When can I get the next, whatever?
Isn't it wild how your optic on money shifts over time?
Exactly. And so that's why I said we want to do this in the 3-month cycle, because you get it, you get inspired. All right, this is where I'm at. This is my kind of bump.
Yeah.
But also you have your marching orders from there. You know that, all right, in the next quarter, if I want to get a higher level of compensation, then I can work in these areas. Maybe it's getting your EMT. Maybe it's increasing your proficiency with, firearms, working on your soft skills, whatever it might be. We have the 3-year training plan. So it's like an academy to where people can go through and become a better version of themselves, but we're compensating them to do it. But if they don't do it, then we're also identifying if somebody's not growing on the vine. And that's our way of figuring out early if somebody turns into a bad apple.
It's good to have that objective metric, because in the world that we live in, without that and this subjectivity, it's an easy way to say it is we live in a very litigious world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you better have your ducks in a row when you're getting
Especially
ready.
Silicon Valley.
Oh, man, I can't even fathom it.
Yeah.
There's just...
Yeah.
For people who've never been over there, I haven't spent an immense amount of time, but again, growing up that close before the .com boom, and then just seeing what was happening, it was a little wild.
Yeah.
Most people will never, probably a combination of two things. One, will never probably get to a place in their life where they feel like they need EP of any kind. Or two, probably wouldn't be able to afford it. It's not cheap. I don't know the exact cost of this stuff, but I mean, it's expensive.
Absolutely.
For what you're paying for, especially what you're talking about. Full-time agents, emphasis on the S at the end of that, so not singular, but multiple, unless you want to burn somebody down to their bones.
Yeah.
So for the vast majority of people, though, one of the things that I don't live in this world professionally, and I'm not saying it's the phone's fault, but one of my favorite, saw it again recently. It's an artist who takes pictures and they Photoshop the phones out of people's hands. And so everybody's posture is just down. Situational awareness is low.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't even recognize the risk that they are sometimes inadvertently exposing themselves to. And for me, I like practical things that can have an impact. For somebody who works in this world, and again, the challenges for an everyday person, yes, my God. Click on a couple. Oh, do the wedding one, Michael. Or yeah, the bed one's great too. Yeah.
Yeah. So true.
It's so true. And once you see it like this, like that's just a picture of a hand. Once you start seeing these, though, it is so ridiculous from an outside perspective to look at that. And yeah, there you go. That's just getting married. No big deal. God.
Yep.
And it looks so creepy without the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, just tractoring. That's probably in motion too. Yeah, sharing family time together. What is the, what do we got here? ericpickersgill.com/removed for people who want go back to the main screen, Michael, just scroll the other direction, obviously. My goodness. Scrolling to the top of the page. Thank you, Michael.
Speaking of finding good help.
Yeah. Man. There's less than I thought. Situational awareness to me is the beginning of, and before I say anything else, I don't think people need to walk around pretending like they're conducting espionage or be tuned up to a 10 all the time either, because that will actually fry you to the bone as well.
Yep.
But being ignorant to the world that is around us and the threats that are around us is it's ignorant. Irresponsible, perhaps. We'll use another I word. Where would you start? We'll just call it your everyday mom and pop, Joe and Jane. What is your recommendation to people to actually increase their own security?
Don't overcomplicate it, but be aware of it. You look at the majority of threats that people are actually facing today, and I would say probably in the next 10 years, from the average person that doesn't live in a high crime area, is actually digital.
Let me tell you about my dad. How much time do we have on that SIM card, Michael? Because I understand now. My dad turned 79 last week.
Oh.
I understand why the digital world is so dangerous for them. Because I am not joking. I could fill up half of that 2 terabyte SSD drive with this just happened and this just happened. from putting credit card information online, which is a different type of threat, right? Which people will say, oh, that's not really physical. Well, it becomes physical when you no longer can pay for your mortgage or get food or put gas in your car. That's a real physical complication. It is sophisticated. And his generation is probably the most susceptible. Mine's right around the corner, though, too.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about myself in a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's Wild West out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And the amount of data that each product owner has on each user is mind-boggling, you know? I won't go into the numbers, but you know, every one of the Facebook account has literally hundreds of 3-ring binders worth of data about each user. And the average person that thinks, oh, it's kind of funny that I was talking about blenders today for the first time in 10 years, and all of a sudden that popped up on my feed in Instagram and Google and everywhere else.
Probably just random, right? But the secondary consequences of that we don't typically think about is that data goes somewhere. And that data being somewhere is somewhere that is open to being compromised. And that data that is now 24 hours a day, everything we're talking about, everything we're doing, that data now is being held somewhere where somebody wants to get it. And so they're no longer actively pursuing your dad. They're actively pursuing the benign data, don't even know it's necessarily him. They get lucky. They get into a crack in a door through an emergency exit of the data center and get that data, and then all of a sudden that is compromised, or more sophisticated ways of going about it. Either way, that danger, you know, is all out there, and that's something that we're not really talking about. Now, on the physical side of things, I like to simplify that as well, right? I've had the benefit of attending lots of tradecraft training that isn't publicly available, and you know, spent 6 months in you know, behavioral science training and in understanding microexpressions and tics and how the human nature works. And where'd you do that course?
Through instructors that we specifically brought in through our training. It's not an open market course.
Are they basically just telling you how to observe the small, subtle things in people?
Basically, it's not that simple, but yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Everything from the shape of a person's head, right? Oh, absolutely. Like a lot of snipers go through the training. You look at the shape of a person's head, shape of a person's eyes, shape of their jaw, shape of their ears, all of those things, and then understanding how to correlate micro expressions with the progressions, with the patterns that they have when you're interacting with them, understanding what their natural, you know, reaction is, whether it's top right, top left, you know, for their eyes, whatever it is. Each of those things is as a data point that you can take and you can form your general impression based on all of those. What I've done is I've taken and said, all right, the average human being isn't going to go through behavioral analysis training or any of that, but they do have something called intuition, right? And my wife is incredibly good at this. She was a flight attendant. And when there was a creeper on the plane.
Talk about snap judgment.
Absolutely.
You don't think you're getting snap judged as you come onto the plane and take a right? The second they can see you, it's like, who is this guy going to be? Or gal?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I'll never forget the day that, you know, she had a passenger on her plane that tried to take one of those, you know, disposable cameras and snap a picture up her skirt. And she grabbed that camera out of his hand before he was able, and it was based on her ability to see that he had, you know, bad intent, right? She didn't have any special training. She just, you know, understood that there was somebody with bad intent. Thankfully, you know, he got arrested and never got a picture, and, you know, it all worked out. But that same level of understanding is something that we can all put into play. It doesn't matter if it's a secretary, doesn't matter if it's a CEO, right? Yeah. You walk into a bar, there's baseline in that bar, right? Just like with a polygraph, right? And you got to get your baseline, right? So you look around that bar, that's thumbs up, right? People sitting there, people throwing darts, people, you know, playing slots, whatever it is. That's your baseline. That's thumbs up in my world. Then if you look over in the corner and there's somebody that there's something a little different about them. It might be just who they are. It might be something a little off.
Show your face, Michael. You look over.
You look over and
you're like, who cut this guy's hair? Why does he have a half beard but a full stash? You're like, we have to go because clearly on America's Most Wanted top 10.
That's where you recognize it. We call that a thumb sideways. So
him, I have 3/4.
Yeah, you're almost dipping, almost dipping. Like somebody that raises the index of suspicion.
Yeah.
just because something's off, right? It could be the way they look. It could be, it could be something. It could be nothing.
That's wild in this era because a lot of a big message, not pushed by everybody, is you have to accept everybody for who they are. Their expression is their identity. So it's almost, because I agree with what you're saying. And I tell my kids this, if something doesn't feel right, you don't have to ring like a 5-alarm bell. No. But also don't push that aside. It's a data point. Like you said.
Exactly.
And you'll hear people, well, you're judging that person. Yes. To a degree. Are you profiling them? Like, we don't have to get crazy with these magic words that are always associated with negativity.
Right.
I'm paying attention. What I saw makes me feel a certain way. Does that mean that I'm right? No.
Yeah.
Does that mean that I should ignore how I feel? No. Let's find a middle ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you said, it's like we're no longer at the thumbs up, the dial's coming a little bit the other direction.
Yeah. And the difference between thumbs up and thumbs sideways could just be everybody else in the room is wearing a T-shirt and they're wearing a coat. Right. Yeah. So you're not saying that this person, or just the fact that they're wearing the coat, because this person there's nothing necessarily wrong with them. It's just we have to give a little more attention and let our index of suspicion raise a little bit. So there's thumb sideways. And people can go from thumb sideways. You look at them, it's like, oh, yeah, well, they're thumb sideways because of, whatever qualifying factor. Yeah. And then they can go back to thumbs up. Or it's like, oh, I'm going to pay a little extra attention to this individual. And then halfway through the night, you see somebody that has something egregious, something that, a gun or whatever it might be, then that's thumbs down, right? That means create time and distance between you and whatever the thumbs down is, right? So we don't have to have this incredibly complex progression to be able to say, how do we apply, clandestine level behavioral analysis to everyday life? Yeah. We can say, is this environment thumbs up? Is this thumb sideways? Or is it a thumbs down? Because if you take and you're able to make that transition as a regular civilian, as a regular secretary or CEO, and just have that awareness to say, all right, that thumbs sideways went to thumbs down, I'm going to go. That's the difference. Creating time and distance is often the difference in these bad situations between somebody being close to an event and being part of an event.
God, that time and distance is so important. I don't think it's talked about. I'll tell a story my daughter won't appreciate, but it's okay. She doesn't listen. But this goes into people maybe absent-mindedly drastically involving themselves in something that can get risky at a very nonlinear rate, where everything is fine. And this is what I tell people. Everything is fine until it's not. If you can really flatten that curve between everything being fine until everything not being fine, you have time and distance.
Right.
It's when you smash everything being fine with everything not being fine right up on top of it, it's what are you going to do? So, Michael, what words would you use to describe my daughter's level of sass?
Oh. If we're going 1 to 10, it's like 11 or 12.
Yeah. Okay. So Michael and I are aligned very infrequently, but on this one we agree. She's amazing. Love her to death. She's the best. And are you a parent?
Yes.
Okay. So you understand.
Yeah.
It's impossible to describe with current vocabulary how much you can equally love, be worried about the same thing, and then sometimes so utterly frustrated and wonder why you made the life choices that you did.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I get a phone call. She's crying, Dad, I don't know what to do. Dad, I don't want to do. I'm being chased by this guy. It was here in Kalispell. She's in her car. I'm not even in the same state at this point, which she knew. So she called. I'm like, listen, what's going on? I couldn't even necessarily understand at that point. It was happening so fast that her ability to kind of tell me what was leading up to the event was tough. I was like, listen, actually, that doesn't matter right now. How close are you to the police station, which is actually just on the other side of this building?
Yep.
Like start driving towards the police station. In worst case scenario, you're going to park in front of that and call 911. Didn't get to that point. Later on, the real story comes out. She was critiquing somebody else's driving through, shall we call it, sign language. And this is another thing I try to tell my kids too, and this is good advice for everybody. You don't know what somebody else is dealing with in their life in that moment.
Yeah.
You don't know if just a quick little, you're number one is going to be the straw that breaks the metaphorical camel's back. Are they in the middle of a contentious divorce and they just got news that they couldn't they're barely hanging on, and that snaps them, or are they having the best day of their life and they're going to laugh at you because you realize you're a 17-year-old girl.
Yeah.
So I also think she might have cut this person off. This whole story,
the rest of the story,
this entire story likely is based on her driving ability, which if we were to again rate that, Michael, on a 1 to 10, 10 being good, she might be closer to a 3.
You send her O'Neill's.
She's mathematically, she's at 100% ding or damage rate of every vehicle. We'll just leave it at that. And then she'll tell me, but those weren't my fault. I'm like, really? Is the telephone pole you hit, that just was like, it juked you? It was snowing. Like, never mind. Cut somebody off, flips him off. And this then becomes this person driving behind her, super crazy, cutting other people off to get up next to her. She has a young female friend in the car with her. They're in tears, trying to figure out what to do. Now they're trying to get away. So she's starting to drive erratically and recklessly. So it's just like this whole risk matrix went from everything is fine, space-time distance, to right up there. And eventually, as she got close to the police station, the guy peeled off and left. And I got home the day after, and I sat down, and, you know, we've all made mistakes in life, of which I don't have the time to even go alphabetically through my own. But what I do with my kids specifically, I try to be honest about my mistakes, and I try to talk to them about what I did to correct for that behavior. And more than anything, that I am at least trying to, not always successfully, not repeat the mistakes I have in my past. I'm like, let's talk about what happened. The error chain. Where did this start? Well, he was being a total asshole. I agree, but I said, where did this start?
Right.
Well, I probably couldn't have flipped him off. Okay, let's go back. Where did this start? Well, I probably couldn't have, maybe not cut him off. I'm like, okay. By doing that, you expose yourself to a level of risk that you weren't ready for. So let's think about that. And it's so hard with anybody that age to try to forward think into the risk that they may be exposing themselves to. And the conversation ended up being great, and we ended up laughing about it. But it's still something that I bring up. I'll still talk to her from time to time. Like, manage, again, that space and distance. You don't have to do those things that increase your risk threshold. And there's some things you can control, and there's some things you can't. I mean, I have another example from Montana. We're driving home one night with my wife. And again, I don't know what's going on in people's world. And we're on a road that is 2-lane traffic, one going in each direction. We're in the truck, and this guy pulls up next to me, like hauling ass, and I'm driving the speed limit. He passes in a non-passing area, cuts right in front of me, brake checks. And at this point, the first thing I'm doing is I'm like slowing back, staying away. We get to a roundabout. He stops at the roundabout, even though there's nobody else there. So at this point, I stop like 100 yards back and throw my brights on. And my wife is like, what are you doing? I'm like, I am managing our exposure because I don't know what this person is doing.
Absolutely.
Now, having said that, there's also tools that were being prepared.
Nothing wrong with being prepared.
There's nothing wrong with being prepared. Have no desire what to use whatsoever. But I'm already like, okay, I'm going to move laterally. We're going to cover, like, the first thing I was going to do is separate my wife from the threat. But again, that starts with recognizing as early as possible where a threat could come from. And I try to give myself as much distance as possible and the tactical advantage by turning the brights on. So if somebody pops out of the car, I can see them and they can't see me. My wife's just like, what is going on? I'm like, nothing. Then they end up taking off. And then you have a choice. Do you want to chase them?
Right.
Do you want to turn this into, Michael's laughing. Geez. So you would have put, in his glove box, he has a Batman mask. He would have put that on. He would have put that on and turned all of his lights off and gone whisper mode after this guy.
Go Comic-Con after him.
How many people would do that though, right? They're like, that person wronged me.
Right.
I'm on. And then that's how you end up out of a car. And in Montana, just about everybody has a gun. That's how a firearm or tool gets introduced into something. And the next thing you know, you go from having a normal night to a funeral. Why? Manage your risk, people.
No, it's mind blowing. I mean, I just had
time and distance, man. It's huge.
No, I just had an incident. Somebody tried to rob us 2 weeks ago, and
what?
What
state?
Washington, right on the Idaho border. And
I think it was a Washingtonian or an Idahoan. I don't know if that's how you say it.
It was two 50-time felons, recent
5-0?
weapons. weapons charges, and from recent weapons charge, illegal possession. Obviously, I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
Just knew the wife saw some suspicious people.
How did they approach you to fill me in?
No, they drove onto our property, and we have storage units that we built.
Yeah.
Like it's on the lower part of our property.
Maybe they just wanted to inventory what you had.
Absolutely, they were doing a very systematic job of inventorying. Popped the lock.
They were helping you out.
That's right. And 3 minutes into it, it was very, very apparent that they were relieving us of some things.
Yeah.
And so I went down and got between them and the exit, and thankfully didn't have to use the staccato. But was very, very the interesting thing, for me doing post incident review, looking at myself in motion, is I'm not in law enforcement, So everything that I do in a situation like that, where it is full on, you have two, obvious felons who have bad intent, who knows what they have, inside their tended vehicle. I'm not trying to enforce the law at that point, right? Like it's a life or death situation, and I'm systematically trying to eliminate risk,
Yeah.
And I remember clearly in my head, because it was only a couple weeks ago, like in my head thinking, all right, the risk if they get out on that side is going to be more if they get out on this side, because I don't have a clear visual. I'm going to have to engage through the windshield, which means that the round is going to rise. Like systematically going through this in real time. And then I remember thinking, wow, this sight on the staccato is incredible. Like mid-incident, right? Thankfully, got them both proned out. Law enforcement came, and they look like they're going to be, serving some good time for that.
Why didn't they serve time for the other 50 felonies?
Welcome to Washington State.
Is it really that bad? I mean, I know that there's different counties inside of Washington, but there are some horror stories coming out of there.
Yeah, it's sobering. Like I've split my time between Washington and Montana. My dad is from Washington, my mom's from Whitefish, and so we've literally come back and forth my entire life. And Washington is, just continues to go downhill. And I'm not real political about things, but people are making decisions that have consequences. Those consequences are coming to light, and I think that's a lot of what you see. We're out of the country, so we typically don't see the instances like we saw here. It's typically very safe, but it's definitely a lot more wild than it was in the past.
Yeah. Time and distance. That's a good T-shirt. We should make that one, Michael. I had another good suggestion today, actually, based off the episode we released. It just says Navy SEAL fatigue. People just exhausted of hearing. I saw that. I was like, I'll make that. I will wear that on a show because that's awesome.
It used to be that you never heard about Teams guys talking to anyone about anything other than the little circle.
I agree, but it also used to be like I would say I was late to the social media world, but it wasn't even an option before. And I ask myself this: if the people, let's say the Vietnam era SEALs, of which you hear almost nothing about, or the UDT before that, people don't even recognize that the underwater demolition teams were the precursor to the SEAL teams. Both existed simultaneously for a while, and then the SEAL teams absorbed the UDT. Would we have heard about them and heard from them if they had the same tools available that the modern era does? I think so.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a bad thing. I was inspired to go down the path that I was through a direct connection. My father was not a SEAL, but worked adjacently to them. But you never know. And I know guys I served with who read a book and it inspired them. And I know many people now who have either heard a podcast or seen content of some kind, and that inspires them. So there is actually a lot of net positive that comes from it. And I think the volume of communication is directly related, to a degree. I'm not going to say the whole way, but directly related to the efficiency of the tools that are available now. And quite frankly, perhaps something that didn't exist back then, but is 100% real, is you can get rewarded from having that kind of background.
Yeah.
And My theory is this: people's experiences are theirs to do with what they want. I'm not here to tell people what to make or how to make it. My only ask is you tell the truth. That's it. And as long as people are doing that, I may not personally agree with the Navy SEAL cookbook, of which I'm not aware that there is one, but I'm sure that there is, if not several. I wouldn't do that. But you know what? You earned your tried. You do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But it's like anything else. I think if you drink too much water, it's going to kill you too.
Yeah.
So I do actually think, though, just knowing the community of absolute chuckleheads that I worked with, and I say that in the most loving manner, the craziest and also most sane people that I've ever worked with, and are the most hilarious with like the best and also worst interpersonal communication skills. I think if the tools existed back then, I think you would have heard from them. I really do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. It's but then it can also be taken too far. There is legitimately special forces special forces, Green Beret specific. I meant to say special operations, which is the umbrella for everything. There's a little bit of hero worship around that I don't think should exist. And a lot of that I think has to do with the 20 years of the global war on terror. And I think that is fading a little bit because I think people, it's too much. It's too overexposed. And again, but that goes back to who you are and how you present yourself. If that's all you ever talk about and all you do, that might have one type of result. And if it's something that you can pay respect to and it is a part of who you are, but it's not your whole thing, I think that leads down a different path too. But I'm not anybody to tell anybody anything. Yeah, no, I am certainly not anybody to say anything other than thank you for your service, because at the end of the day, like you look at the hero's shoulders that each SEAL is standing upon, like there's weight behind that, right? The guys who taught me were guys who never had the chance to see combat. Those people are still absolute legends and heroes in my mind. And people will say, well, but they didn't go to Iraq. I'm like, yeah, they didn't get the chance to. Right. But I took what they taught me with me. I mean, we evolved it over time. But we can't forget where we came from either, people. The foundation of the tradecraft. It's incredible. It's been one of the amazing privileges of my career to be able to work with, people from different backgrounds. It's so much fun for me because I like to pull people from different backgrounds so that we have what I call constructive conflict, right? You have your teams guys, you have your, probably got Green Berets, Rangers, CAG guys, all sorts of stuff. Full gambit, right? And then they come together with the sole mission of protecting people, and I call it constructive conflict. It's like, no, we should do high ready. No, we should do low ready, Like, how about we just don't shoot each other? How about, but like that constructive conflict, I like it from the perspective of somebody in the private sector, because we can take and we can, in a professional way, say, this is the way I used to do it, this is the way I used to do it. Combine that together, this is what we do now. This as a team is what we do now based on our current mission, not the mission of the past. Take those tools and say, all right, what are these tools apply here? Because again, we're not doing direct action every single day when you're running a protective detail. One would hope not. That would be amazing, but one would hope not. No. Things have gone really, really bad. Exactly. Certainly not the goal. But improving the tradecraft, improving our ability to use the tools available to us to protect our protectees, that is what I love about that constructive conflict. It gets interesting to manage at certain times, because when you have somebody that's been a pipe hitter, absolutely, for that many years, it's wild, but that's why we focus on the cultural side of things. If somebody's culturally aligned with the vision and values and progression of the organization, but also the protectee, that's a big part of getting people, to just come in under the same banner and say, this is how we're going to protect them. We're going to, stack this way or run the posture this way. That's where we have the innovation in protection. That's how you move the industry forward, find better ways to do it, How does White Glove offer the cyber aspect as well? Because I agree with you. I am not a tech guy by any stretch, but it is so interwoven into the average person's life, in air quotes. And again, I'll reference my dad, who is 79, who has got an iPhone and a laptop, and these are his portals to the world. So he would say he's not, well, anybody who knows him would say he's not tech savvy. And when he does say that, he is telling the truth. But it's the world that we live in. How do you guys address that for the average person as well, too? Because again, they are getting more sophisticated at a rapid rate. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. There's several different ways to go around it. Education is a big part of it. Just understanding, what info not to enter, things like that. But my dad and I had that talk. Don't ever, under any circumstances, enter your credit card information again.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yep. That's called a clue. You know? Yeah. But we have strategic partners that's all they focus on. They've been working with the highest levels of the intelligence community, you know, and targeting aspects before they moved into the private sector. And then they've created solutions for digital executive protection that are second to none, you know.
Do they address at all, if they have children, the risk almost to the protectee via the child's online usage?
Oh, absolutely.
So Deliver Fund is just up the road in Whitefish, and they are an anti-human trafficking organization. Their CEO, Nick McKinley, was just on. Once every year, we have the Andy and Nick sit down and scare the crap out of parents conversation. And we were talking pretty heavily about Roblox this last time, and not only just the games, but that seems to be well-known and established reality, to include by the people who are running Roblox, that it is I don't want to say a cesspool, that may not be fair. It is an environment where people who have malicious intent can maneuver pretty openly. And they'll starts with a game and then they'll try to off-platform you onto Discord. And I just re-X'd, or whatever you're supposed to call it now, saw it in Fox News. A child is missing because it was a conversation they were having on Roblox, and the kid was talked into going in the real world to go meet somebody somewhere else. And hopefully this will have a happy ending. Statistically, not the best.
Yeah.
But you want to talk about somebody who is savvy and nuanced and wants to play the long game, and you have these families, right? It's not just the protectee, because maybe the protectee has great EP, executive protection. Where do you start pushing around the edges?
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. That's why there, especially the last 5 years, has come to prominence. Last 10 years, we've been focusing on it deeply. And that is, what is the digital footprint of the protectee, as well as the secondary and tertiary levels around them, you know, because oftentimes you'll have good digital hygiene when you're talking about the protectee and, you know, Mr. and Mrs. maybe. Yeah. But, you know, the children, they're going to do what they want, you know.
And you want to talk about leverage on a parent? My goodness. Yeah. Again, there's no vocabulary to describe what you would do.
Yeah.
And the horrendous things you would do to another human being to keep your child safe.
No, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So we include all of this in our onboarding with any client, going through the process to understand it, but also to understand, you know, when Aunt May comes over for you know, Christmas dinner, it snaps pictures of the family and posts it to her unsecured social media account that is geotagged, that shows, you know, exactly what trajectory, you know, your windows are, what neighbors are in the background, to where, you know, a bad actor can come in and literally get your digital, you know, blueprint of your house just through her photo, you know. Like, most people aren't aware of that, you know? And so doing an assessment and understanding, all right, what's out there now, what can be managed? Because again, not everything can be managed. Publicly available information is stuck there, you know? Yeah. So what can be managed? And then moving forward, what do you need to do about that? Because that will fundamentally change somebody's protective posture. If their digital footprint is so intense that they have an unsustainable level of risk, then you have to do something about it. You know, either that or you're going to lock them down in a bunker. You know?
Which they'd have to agree to.
Yeah, exactly. Which they're never going to agree to.
What would it take for you to say no to a client? Would it be and I don't mean no like in the moment, but somebody calls you and they're like, hey, we want you to come take a look at this. And you're looking at it and you're like, no. What would it take?
Well, we have very narrow parameters for who we accept as clients. You know, most of our clients are Fortune 500 companies or CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, so private family offices of that. So we already have a very narrow, you know, acceptance rating. But it has to be a sustainable level of wealth. It has to have an embedded director.
You don't want their checks to bounce?
Preferably not. Preferably not.
How dare you, sir?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. In the 3 years since we've existed, our highest net worth protectee has been the only one that's been slow to pay, you know, which is hilarious.
It's hilarious, but it makes sense because there's a difference between being a high net worth person and being liquid.
Well, yeah, no, it's not that. It's the infrastructure in place. It's, well, I won't get too far into it, but yes, no, definitely. I mean, we're talking, I mean, before I started White Glove, I'd never, in the last 15 years, I hadn't worked a client that was worth less than $15 billion.
With a B?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was having this conversation with somebody today. I don't understand that number. I know that means $15,000 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. No. Mind officially blown.
Can you imagine waking up and just thinking every day, forever, I could do and possess anything. Well, probably you can't do anything. Let's be clear about that. But you could, within a phone call, possess anything you want to. One, I think that would ruin you, likely. Two, I think you would actually get tired of that over time. And the things that you have would probably end up feeling like they have less worth. But I'm sorry. I would like to try it for a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I take that back. 30 days.
I don't
and
ever.
I get to keep the things.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't ever want to be worth more than $20 million. I've been around old money protectees. I've been around new money protectees.
What's the difference between the old money and the new money in behavior?
Expectations.
Who has more of them?
Old money, especially second and third generations, the expectations are rooted in the understanding that I was born with XYZ. And probably one of the most sobering stories that I can remember from about 2 decades ago was the grandpa who was my primary protectee went out and bought a brand new vehicle for his 16-year-old granddaughter. And I went out and got a big bow. It was in the color she wanted. Everything was to the nines, very nice vehicle. And I go deliver it, put it in the front. And then she comes walking in. Yep. Oh, that's the wrong shade of the color. I don't really like that. Was her entire response.
Like no happiness. It was straight to like,
Straight 100%. Yeah, like I don't even want that because it's the wrong shade of the color that I asked for.
I think I would immediately light the car on fire.
I had
not that I have the money to do that.
Yeah.
But it's like, really? Yeah. Do you like the shade of this burnt?
Yeah. But the face of grandma and grandpa who had hustled, who had started with nothing, developed everything, had that level of net worth. Their face
probably just broke him inside a little bit.
Yeah, and that was one of the early times when I was like, I don't want to be worth too much. Doesn't matter if I win whatever, right? Like I want sustainable income so that I don't have to worry about paying the bills, right?
And you can do what you want with your time.
Well, exactly. Like be able to make the world a better place, not focus on paying the bills, right? Yeah. But I don't want to be controlled by the excess that's in my account. And I think that's what you see with a lot of the old money is they'll buy vehicles specifically because they're like, oh, well, I don't want to buy that vehicle because people will think this about me, So it becomes about impression, but it becomes about living the life that you think other people want you to live, Well,
and then there's always more. I've heard Rogan talking about this a few times. He has, pretty sure he talks about it through the lens of the friends that he has. So there's the guy with 15 billion, and then there's the guy with 150 billion. And in that dynamic, the dude with $15,000 million feels poor because his private jet is smaller. And then the guy with the 150 billion, I bet you he knows somebody, he knows Elon Musk. He's like, why don't I have 5 G650s that are flying around? I guess it's ramen again tonight for dinner on my China from the Titanic, that I sent a Japanese pearl diver down on a breath hold to get that cost me $80,000 a plate. Well, I mean, it's an escalation to no happiness,
Yeah, context is everything.
Also, I still would like to do the 30-day trial if there's a billionaire out there that would like to fund this for research. Right. Michael, would you like to attend if we can get a sponsor?
Yeah, I'd be down.
Okay, sweet. Good. So it'll be 2 of us. We need a few bill.
There we go.
30-day test. We get to keep, I would have quite a selection of helicopters. Michael would have like some jiu-jitsu gis and like a new pair of shoes.
I'm guessing you're not going with an R-44.
No, absolutely not. Those are great helicopters. That's what I learned in. Yeah. So. Do you guys do aviation stuff at all?
We do aviation security. Most of my clients have previous, to current clients because I can't talk about them. But
yeah, for sure.
like the old ones have full fleets and
of everything. Yeah, they got the rotary to the fixed. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, a client in Philly, we would we'd fly from Philly to New York, 2-3 times a week, just back and forth, and then obviously jets on both ends as well, just in case you got to take off. Like
it gives you a different perspective on time.
Absolutely, and managing time,
for sure, or what your time is, how much your time is worth.
Well, and you have protectees, in both categories that you mentioned earlier, that I've certainly had, that you are driving to the airport, you're driving to the FBO, and they don't know where they want to go. And so
And the plane's just sitting there?
No, 2 planes are sitting there.
What?
Because one is ready to go to Antarctica if they want to go to Antarctica. The other is scheduled to go to Tahiti just in case they want to go to Tahiti, because they don't know exactly what direction they want to go, because there's tons of influencing factors, possibly in the car, possibly out of the car.
And they can go wherever they want.
Go wherever they want. And it creates so many challenges for us that is fun to guesstimate.
Yeah.
Right? Like, where do I send my advanced team? Well, obviously you send them to both.
I mean, you can skip Antarctica, but there you're going to be fine. Security risk is low.
One of my guys there right now. It's there's definitely some spikes, but
that would probably be depending on who the other people that are around, and also don't go out on the glacier by yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
The crevasse brief that we got when we were there was very real.
Right.
Then they showed the overhead, and they're like, "This is why this red flag section exists. If you go outside of that, don't go outside of that."
Yeah, exactly. But that entire dynamic is something that you don't even think about until you're working with somebody who's with that, excess, we'll say.
Can you even fathom that? Rolling up to 2 jets. And again, this is where my mind doesn't understand that level of choice, because the first thing I think of, it's like, God, what's the acquisition cost of that jet? I bet you the insurance. I'm like, wow, how much is it to fill it up? If you got brake pads you got to replace, where do you hangar that thing? How many pilots do you have? We're not even off the ground yet. You're already in 7 figures, easily on both. And I can't fathom a headspace where you have so much money where that is not part of your equation.
Money is not a limitation. It's access.
That's a good way to put it.
It's been hard for me to wrap my head around it, because I used to try to provide value for the amount of money that's spent to protectees, right? I want to be able to show the value of what I'm providing.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really resonate once people are at a certain level of net worth, right? What resonates is, can you get me access to the things or activities or memories that I want? Can you get me to that part of the world that I want to be in at this time of the year for this activity? Is it physically possible? Because I have my board of directors meeting at 5:00, and it's going to end at 5:00. We can't leave till then, but I want to be to that crazy part of the world by midnight so that I can have this experience, right? Yeah. So it no longer becomes part of a value for anything. It becomes, is it physically possible for you to get creative? Because this isn't stuff that normal people do. Right? Like, we can't fathom it as normal humans, Yeah. But can you get it? How can you work the logistics to be able to facilitate that? What makes me light up is the smile on their face when they get there and they make it in that amount of time, when you made the impossible happen. And they don't see all the constructive chaos that took place behind the scenes, the hundreds of people that have been calling in every favor from every government across the world to be able to get a landing permit in an area where you're not allowed to land after 8 p.m., but you need to land at 11:59 to be able to make it there for the midnight deadline, Like them, it's almost like a challenge seen in their mind. Like, is it possible, Do
you think they appreciate it?
I think
like a deep appreciation, or do you think it's fleeting?
I think that it's different with each protectee. Value to them is absolutely subjective. I had one of my favorite protectees give me an amazing timepiece.
Rolex.
Several weeks before I was let go, for no reason, and that's the reality of this world. Is transitions happen in their world at a pace that you either keep up with it or you're irrelevant, right? And it's not a personal thing, right? Like, none of the protectees that have let me go over the years did so with, for any egregious reason or malice or anything like that. It just, I wasn't relevant to their time and space.
Your utility had run out. Yeah.
At least their
perceived
impression
utility.
of that. Yeah, exactly. And so there's no security in the executive protection world. The only job security we have is the people around us. And I've been so grateful that for the last 2.5, 3 decades, I've never been without a job within 2 weeks of me leaving a previous job, But I've moved, my wife and I moved 19 times our first 15 years together.
That's a lot.
Pursuing different opportunities around the country, because we wanted to have that progression and I wanted to be able to move forward in the industry, And so really it's been my goal to align my value with the needs of the protectee, And so you kind of have to be a chameleon with their culture and figure out what's important to them and what environments, do they want to experience and then really take and get creative. How do we protect this person in a way that's in line with their culture and values and expectations today,
My first exposure to the difference in the worlds that people live in is I did some charter flying as a Gulfstream pilot. I'm type rated in a G4.
Oh, wow.
And I'm pretty sure we were in Hawaii. I don't remember the exact island, so I'm not going to guess. And same thing, FBO, which for people to know is called fixed-based operations. If you've never experienced an FBO, I mean, how would you describe it to somebody? It's a totally different optic on aviation.
Oh, for sure.
And if you're high net worth people rolling up, you're probably going to be rolling to under 5 miles an hour as the gate opens, pulling up to the vehicle, onto the carpeted stairs, luggage in the back, engine starting, see you later. And somewhere in there, you may get your passport checked, maybe not. Maybe your ID, maybe not.
Depends what part of the country.
Totally. Let's just say it's not like TSA. It's the anti-commercial terminal experience.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting there, and so the Part 135 flying, which is the charter operations, the FAA Part 135, uses FBOs all the time. So we're sitting there, and I love Gulfstream products. I love the oval windows.
Oh, absolutely.
And this was when the 650s were pretty new. So one lands and rolls up, and a car pulls up, and a man gets off with a dog in a dog carrier, hands the dog to the guy in the car, and the car leaves. The guy got back on the plane, the ramp came up, and they took off. Now, I don't know exactly how much a G650 is to operate per hour, but I know that the G4 was at about 8,000 just to turn that thing on.
Yeah, bump it up by 3.
So let's say like 11 to 12, right? Would be a safe bet. That bird came from New York. That man was essentially the dog's babysitter until it could be brought on vacation with the family. And then that 650 came back later on. And I'm sitting there like, what?
Yep.
I'm talking like dog, just like 10-pound dog. Oh. Well into the 6 figures. Like you said, money, not a limiting factor.
We had a massive team deployed in Central America with a protectee. And this is right in the middle of COVID. And this protectee was trying to, cook things in a certain way, and they found out that they needed butter. And butter was not available in the middle of the jungle to their liking. And so I was like, hey.
At a level of net wealth, butter becomes available.
So I literally had we'll just call him a highly skilled guy, fly, pick it up, come back, and I think 8.5 hours later, butter was served to the liking of the protectee.
Per ounce cost of that butter. But again, they don't care.
It's not about the value, right?
Yeah.
Like it's about the our ability to deliver access, deliver the experience, deliver things that make their lives better, right? Because you look at these people, no matter what anybody says, their lives are stressful, Yeah. And I had one protectee that I hope to someday be able to maintain that level of mental discipline, because every day at 4:00, it was like a switch flipped. It went from board meeting to him and I be walking down the beach talking about the Beach Boys, talking about you know, Johnny
Life.
Cash,
Yeah.
you know, just
life,
regular guy talk type of deal, you know, and literally minutes before that, you're talking highest levels of corporate America, right? And the ability to just switch it off and then just be able to kind of come down from that high level of attention to detail that you have to have is something that I try and do, you know, because
I think I struggle in those transitions too. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's the ability to transition from those headspaces. It's tough. You can get caught without that. You're stuck at a 10, but you got to have some time at a 2.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the candle burning at both ends. Let me tell you how that works. The candle's burned out.
It doesn't. Yeah. And I've crashed 3 times in my career, like to burnout. Once was in Israel. I remember laying I'm flat on my back at the King David Hotel. They were feeding me water. My team was feeding me water through a straw because my throat was so swollen. Just pure exhaustion. Gone 3 months without sleeping more than an hour a night. Like we were traveling on tour with the client, and that was just life, you know. And it happened 2 other times since then, and it got progressively worse each time, you know. Probably because I wasn't any younger, but also, you know, you work 80, 90-hour work weeks for decades, and it has its toll on you, you know. But being able to find that, you know, whatever hobby it is or whatever it is to be able to scale back, I think is super important.
What do you like to do outside of the protection world? I'm
trying to figure that out right now, being perfectly honest, because it's been literally so much of my life. Thankfully I have, you know, small kids right now. So being able to spend time with my wife and them has been incredible. Yeah. But I don't have, you know, traditional hobbies. I used to golf, but I haven't golfed in 25 years, you know. I used to love sports, you know, but I haven't had time to, you know, follow anything consistently, you know, because I've literally lived my clients' lives for the last several decades. You know, whatever music they wanted to listen to, that's what I listened to, you know.
Are there any business sectors that interest you that you would want to get in outside of the EP world?
We've dabbled some with the commercial real estate. We have about 25,000 square feet of indoor storage space, which has been great. But really, I'm really more focused on the volunteering side of things. You know, once I turned 40, I was at a point to where I didn't have to worry about my kids being able to eat if I didn't work. Right. Worked nonstop my entire life, you know, doing this. And once I got to that point, I was like, all right, there's got to be more than just, you know, chasing a buck, because that had been my motivation for so long. And my old chief security officer at PayPal said, Caleb, if you chase a paycheck, you're never going to be happy. He said, you need to chase your passion, you know, because the paycheck will follow.
I think it's usually a blend. I know a lot of people who are passionate about some really weird stuff.
Absolutely.
And I want people to be able to chase their passion. The advice I give them is this: make sure you can pay your bills.
Yeah.
Devote your off time to your passion.
Yeah.
And then you can probably build an off ramp. It is irresponsible to only chase your passion because your mortgage payment doesn't care about your passion.
For sure.
Your car payment, it's like, oh, you're passionate about this. Well, we're passionate about getting paid.
Right. Yeah. And contextualizing that is amazing. I'm so glad you did that. Like the context of his conversation with me was, you know, about 2 workaholics that have worked their entire careers, you know, to where it's like, all right, I'm going to try to get another 100,000 raise this year. You know, like that was the progression in corporate America. You're trying to follow that. Right. And being able to take a step back and say, all right, I'm a highly competent professional. I'm gonna take and focus on some other things, you know. So I started focusing on the volunteering aspects, giving back to the industry, which, you know, became my passion for the last 10 years. I've served in volunteer, you know, capacity on different leadership boards and mentoring and things like that. And then that passion turned into White Glove, and that's, you know, turning into the you know, profit producing entity. Yeah. So absolutely good advice. Make sure you're, you know, not chasing rainbows and
have
butterflies.
Money for groceries, people, especially if other people are relying on you.
For sure.
I just don't want to be on my deathbed with regrets.
Yeah.
And, you know, you hear people say it all the time. Hey, you're not buried with the money that you make, which is a very true statement, but it's also money does make the world go round. If you want to do things, it's going to come at a cost.
Yeah.
If you want to have things, don't get me wrong, I like money and nice things just like everybody else.
Of course.
But I just can't fathom how bad it would be to be on your deathbed with a feeling of regret for things you wish you had done.
Yeah.
And sometimes to do that, I have found in my life at least, I have to say no to opportunities that may produce a little bit more income. But I'd rather take the experience, especially
100%.
with my wife and kids, than a 1% increase in net worth that I'm probably going to blow on something stupid anyway. You know,
Buy another Gila.
don't tease me. I'm going to get targeted by an Instagram ad and be like, I do need 17 storage bins for the garage.
Right?
Made out of titanium that's sink down. I'm like,
It pairs well with my flamethrower.
God. And then you have it and then it sits in the garage and you never use it.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite exercises. You go into the garage and you look at your things. You're like, what'd that cost? How many times have I used it? What's the cost per use on that? What'd that cost? And just really remind myself of how much an idiot I can be. It has helped though. I used to, and I've been in phases in my life where I had to say yes to everything because I didn't know how I was going to pay the mortgage.
Yeah.
And I didn't enjoy
absolutely.
that. God, I felt ragged and just like the amount of stress in that. And it's, I just want to be the master of my own time.
Well, and being able to do the things that inspire you, not worry about the finances, that to me is that healthy balance. You know,
I think that's being rich.
100%.
I mean,
how do you define success, right? And like
ask the person,
contextualizing success at different phases of life. To me, success right now is spending time with my wife and my kids, right? That wouldn't have been the priority 20 years ago, 15 years ago, you know, like priorities change, priorities shift, you know, like, and being able to thrive at each stage in life. How do you do that, right? How do you find things that align with your priorities as well as your pocketbook? All I know is there was one year that I made more money than I'd ever made and still have made to date. And that year was the most miserable year of my life. And I was like, there's got to be more than this. There's got to be more than this, you know?
Yeah.
Literally flying 300,000 miles over the course of that year, you know, all over the place. I'm just like, it's not all about money, you know? And so that in my mind made a fundamental shift in my priorities. You know, my priorities, obviously, you know, I grew up extremely poor, right? My dad made $5 an hour until I moved out, right? And we lived perfectly fine life, you know, paid $150 a month in rent. And I didn't know what it was like to be anything different. You know, we didn't have a car that my parents spent more than $300 on for my entire childhood. And so I know what it's like to live below the poverty line. Right. Yeah. And being a kid, I didn't care about it. It was like, whatever, you know, I'm going to make the best of it. Right. And as I've achieved different milestones in my life, I want to maintain that same level of like cognitive awareness, you know, that it's not all about money. It's not all about the experience. It's not about status. You know, it's about the people around you. Like if you can take the people, one of the most amazing things of starting White Glove is being able to bring in people that have supported me, that have helped me progress in my career over the last couple of decades into positions to where they're able to thrive in their roles, you know, to where they're able to be the best version of themselves, impact the industry in a positive way, you know. That for me is the people I'm around is what's making this experience so enjoyable, right? Yeah. That's different for every person, but you know, what is success? And I think that taking a cold hard look at that for anybody out there is absolutely, you know, time well spent.
Yeah. How do the teams stay sharp? Are there schools that you guys can go to? I mean, I'm assuming there's shooting schools, but EP skills, soft skills, driving skills, do they just allocate time to train outside of their shifts? Do you guys train internally? How do you guys run it?
Yeah. So we're fundamentally changing the way that's done. Traditionally, you'll go to like a 5-day EP school.
Totally. Yeah. It's probably part and parcel. It's like a buffet menu, right? Like this week is this, and then this, and then this.
Exactly. The problem is most teams don't have time to be able to send agents consistently. And if they have time, they don't have the budget. If they have the budget, they don't have the time, you know? So it's, exactly. So a lot of training gets compromised. So that's why we developed our 3-year training plan, you know, again, with the intention of developing the next generation of practitioners. So 3 years, year number 1, every agent focuses on the skills to be able to need to be at the highest level of proficiency for their position. So if they're residential, if they're a detail leader, if they're, close on the close protection team, whatever their specific position is, has a different set of requirements, but also different levels of training. So they might have, TCCC training for medical. They might have, level 1 and 2 firearms training for their firearms. Mm-hmm. We do our best to immerse all the schools in all the training in real world operations, because I like bringing the instructor to the students rather than sending students out to different instructors. Because the quality of instructors in the executive protection industry varies greatly. I'm going to put that delicately.
I think that's true in every sector, to be honest. Yeah. There are legends, and then there are people who have the same title and not the same skill and ability.
Right, exactly. And nobody can be great at everything.
Yep.
And so somebody that's trying to teach a 5-day EP school might be strong at advances, but they might not be as good at, motorcades or whatever it might be. And so instead of looking at and saying we want to send people to these traditional schools, we've taken a new perspective and said, all right, we're gonna have instructors teach our agents where they are in their home AO, and take that area of operation and teach them, where are your local choke points? Where are your, hard points? Where in your world do you want to, improve and grow and develop? What medical training is most salient to your client? Like, what's relevant to your client? Because if you're focusing on heart attack stuff and you primarily covering down on kids, then let's maybe focus on some things that are more relevant to treating your kids. I used to send all my agents to EMT school. Just that was part of our standard every year. First year you go to EMT school. Now I've changed to say I want everybody to be a first responder so that they're under medical direction, but I want them to have training that's specific to their protectee. Again,
that only makes sense. Like if you're watching a kid. I don't know if people think about this. Like, not all tourniquets are created equal.
Exactly. How many people know the difference, right? Your peds kit.
They would wait until they were opening up and they're like, wow, I really can't get this to bite. It's like, yeah, that's an adult tourniquet.
Exactly.
You bought a tourniquet, which awesome. You should have several.
Right.
But if you're tasked with protecting a child, dude.
Yeah.
Pack the right stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing. You driving motorcade operations and you're doing the drop off at school. Yeah. Do you need to drive your typical stack in order to keep them safe? Or can we get creative?
Push all the Honda Odysseys out of the way.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But we teach in the schools there's one way for things to be done. And guess what? That's why Butler happened. Because there's one way for things to be done. And when circumstances fall outside of that one way, stuff falls through the cracks.
Yeah.
Right? So unless we take a holistic look at protection and say we need to accommodate to the lifestyles, preferences, risks of each individual protectee, then we're falling behind the threat curve. Bad guys are getting better day by day. Bad guys are out there saying, hey, I can take this. You look at the, Wisconsin killer that killed the politicians in Wisconsin. Yeah. He went online. He looked up their information online from the publicly available databases, had a whole list based on what he found online. He went there and he started, following his delirious intent, right? Like, how do we prevent that? Well, let's do something about your digital footprint, right? Like, let's take proactive steps. That's stuff that anybody can do at home. That's stuff that you can go online and delete them yourself if you want, right?
Yeah.
It just takes awareness. It just takes, trying to take and, maintain that level of focus. We use 360 privacy for any of that digital deletion end of things, just because I've found them to be the best for me and my protectees, right? But at the end of the day, doing something is better than doing nothing.
I agree. And there would be people who say, well, I can't get rid of these apps. This is a part of what I do. And to them, I say, okay, if that's the premise, then you need to be more aware of what it is you're putting out there. Simple things like, don't post where you're going to be before you go there. If you want to post a picture, post it the day after you were there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And again, so you can make the content that you want to make, but if you just, the awareness aspect of hey, see everybody at, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th Avenue tomorrow at the bar at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Versus you post after you have left. I'm sorry, there's a different risk profile right there. And that's the awareness piece. So you can live in that world too. And I wouldn't recommend posting pictures of your kids. So again, where you live, the internal of your house, I mean, there's so many different, like you can go on Zillow and figure out the internal of most people's houses.
Yep.
Not that I want to give anybody ideas.
Right.
But
yeah. The digital footprint's out there before you get there.
Insane. So yeah, if you have to have it, think more about how you use it. Because I do get the argument. Like my kids are super interconnected with their friends. They're using it. I'm like, okay, just please, for I don't even know, a fraction of a second, think before you go, brain hit. Like that's all I ask.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I ask.
Simple things, take a screenshot of the photo before you post it, at least do some things to create a barrier so you make it harder for the bad actors, to be able to take and do bad things, Doesn't take a rocket scientist, just takes awareness.
So what do you think it looks like if you were to forecast, if the last 18 months have been this uptick, what do you think the next 18 are going to be?
That's a hard question. All the intel forecasting trends, everything we're seeing, shows increased level of, not only online chatter, but, propensity for violence, we're seeing increased rhetoric, both from the left, from the right. You have elections coming up, which always spikes the risk index, So there's going to be a lot of need for people to use their objective head in the next 2 years.
It's a lost skill for some.
Absolutely, and it's sad, right?
It can be found though. That's one of those things you can find your objective head.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if we just remember we're all humans, right? We all have preferences. We all have beliefs. We all have things that are important to us and things that aren't important to us. I think we just need a reality check, right? As a nation. What is our priority? Is our priority really polarizing ourselves from everybody else? Or is our priority just, enjoying the American dream that so many people are living, the American dream that so many people have fought and died for, the American dream that, my grandfather was a POW for 3.5 years for, right? Like that American dream is alive and well, and we're not even looking at it because we're so busy looking on our phones.
I get to the place where I wonder if there are people driving us to not look at it, trying to drive us apart, trying to drive the conflict, right? And again, I'm not going in three-piece tinfoil suit. Again, you're talking about it. A lot of that comes from our electronic devices, the usage, which we do have a heavy hand in. And it's a buddy of mine came in and we decided to take a look at our screen time and post it. Not the most fun.
Right.
Evolution.
Sobering.
Or justify. We're like, what does that number say? I don't remember being on there that much. Almost as if it's designed to be addictive.
Right.
And we're trying to get it under an hour. Last week I was 1 hour and 1 minute was my average. I'm going to destroy him this week because I'm going to hide my phone from myself. But God, I feel healthier. Yeah. Shockingly enough, my battery in my phone is more charged throughout the day.
Amazing.
I don't feel a lot less disconnected. I have missed some things. Like one of the things I honestly didn't see because I wasn't on social media, not that I want to see this anymore, is the most recent shooting in Minneapolis where the guy had the gun taken from him and then he was shot by the ICE officers. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that one.
Yep.
But I can see a world where nation-state actors would love to manipulate American society and get us pitted towards each other. I think a more realistic argument is it's not the deep state. It's just people who hate who we are because they have a different alignment as a nation. And they are crushing us by getting us to fight each other.
Well, and a lot of that isn't even hearsay or it's well publicized in the intel community specifically. That the vast majority of trending data on social media is being pushed by somebody, right? Yeah. And you look at the number of, employees specifically focused on that with Iran and Russia and China, specifically focused on disinformation. There's absolutely a massive effort, that if we don't realize that, we start to think that it's a real thing, if you will, that there's so much. But I mean, look, the shooting happened, yesterday, day before yesterday?
I think it was in the last 72 hours.
Yeah. And any of your social media you try to look at, is dominated by that. Who's pushing that? Is it the algorithm because so many people are clicking on it? or is it somebody that is using a approach that's been well documented since 2004 that, you know, we're talking MySpace days.
Yeah. Or both.
Right?
Combination of the two.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that there is technology out there that is pushing a narrative, and I think that people's desire to consume the you know, things that are entertaining is also pushing a lot of things. But it's each of our responsibility to say, does this make sense?
Yeah.
Right. Like you know, in my mind, you know, there are things with United Healthcare, with Charlie Kirk, with Butler that just don't make sense. It doesn't mean that I'm saying that I have a tin hat.
Yeah.
I can acknowledge this just doesn't make sense from a reasonable perspective as a human being, taking a step back and saying, why wasn't this happening?
And
right?
maybe it's because at the time, like you're saying, the investigation around Charlie Kirk, it may not make sense now because there's a missing information gap.
Totally.
Maybe it'll be filled
Absolutely.
in, and maybe it won't.
Yep.
What I'm not trying to do, and what I advocate for people to not try to do, is don't rush to try to fill that gap.
Exactly.
I don't know is an incredibly acceptable answer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Somebody
Absolutely.
pointing out there saying, I know the truth and this is all that it is, that, again, live your life however you want to.
Yep.
But when 100 people are saying that, no one will ever agree on the truth.
Yeah.
Because how do you separate the wheat from the chaff?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
There's a lot of things that don't make sense to me. And I try to remind myself, maybe it's because I don't have all the information. Another one with the social media stuff, I constantly remind myself, because depending, you know, what you click on, the rabbit hole you go down, you can, and this has happened to me, you can really warp your sense of the world around you. And I will ask myself, is what I'm seeing right now reflective at all of what I'm seeing in my day-to-day interaction in real life?
Right.
I have yet to come to a place where it's like, yes, it is. It's, to this point, has always been, no.
Yeah.
It's not reflective of my real life. And that's actually the answer that I get from everybody that I ask as well, too, which is very important to remember.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about polarized society, right? You have, you know, far left, far right, far whatever. Like, you know, people are more polarized than ever. I would, you know, humbly
In
say.
my lifetime, at least, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And why is that? You know, you can say there's a lot of different, you know, reasons why it is. You know, I try to focus on what I can understand, right? Because in my finite brain, I know that I can't understand everything. You know, I know that I have a ton of weapons available to me in my life, in my job. My favorite weapon is truth, right? And identifying the truth, at least pursuing that, the pursuit of truth that is unbiased truth as well, because I think that, you know, biased truth is just as dangerous. Yeah. But that pursuit of truth in my mind is what protects me from the rabbit trails, right? Because if I'm pursuing a narrative, if I'm pursuing a bias, then I'm following the rabbit trail.
Yeah, if you're looking for confirmation of what you believe, let me tell you what you're going to find.
Exactly.
Confirmation of what you believe.
Yeah, exactly. But if I'm wholeheartedly focusing on the truth, trying to figure out, all right, what is the best way to do this? How do you improve this? You know, what did happen? You know, then that pursuit in and of itself is kind of a distillation process for me that allows me to dig through the layers and really, you know, see what makes sense over time. I think if we took that filtered approach to life, I think that it would allow us to have, you know, a lot more measured approach, certainly to the tragedies, you know, that we see.
I think so too. What do you want to close out with, man? We've been at it a couple hours, so I'm going to get you out here. If you're going to go see your grandmother, enjoy your second hometown. Welcome back. Obviously.
Yeah. Always good to be back. Gonna get Grandma's famous spaghetti tonight, so definitely looking forward to it.
I mean, that's not going to suck. Grandmothers traditionally don't make bad spaghetti.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. She's still rocking it at 91.
That's awesome. Yeah. What do you think? Closing thoughts.
Boy, honestly, in my mind, I'd just like to thank your audience. Like talk about a dense audience of people that have put time, you know, downrange and in the field and doing things that so many of us never had the opportunity, you know, didn't put boots on the ground and doing, you know. Like I just me being here gives me gratitude, you know, for everybody that listens to you and watches you and you know, very grateful for you, for your service, you know, but also for your audience and their service, because I think we me being a civilian my entire career, absolutely, wasn't exposed to the same level of things and can't understand.
That's good.
Well, absolutely. But
many days I wake up and I was like, life choices.
Yeah, right. But your life choices have facilitated mine, right? And
but you have to have both. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm not discounting one or the other. I'm just saying thank you.
98% of it was my pleasure. 2% of it was really sucked.
Pure suck.
Yeah. Before you leave, though, tactical world you're from. My friends down at Montana Knife Company, I think, let me see, flip that box my way. This might be the TF24.
All right.
Yep. All right. That's all you. You can open that up. Don't Dana White yourself and cut your hand open.
I love it.
Yeah. Now, right down in Missoula, they make these. Josh Smith is the youngest master bladesmith that there ever was.
Very cool.
And this was based off of, it's a little bit of a bigger knife, probably not something that you would maybe EDC, but if you got some property out in Washington, this thing might have some great utility.
So one of the things that not many people know is every country I go to, oh, wow, this is incredible. Every country I go to, I try to find a locally made knife.
Nice.
And so in my office, the whole top left section is over 100 knives from all around the world.
Yeah, just grab it normally. Yeah, then you just pop it with your thumb up top. Yep.
Sick.
It's a good blade. Like I said, for me, I've never been a folder much. There's some utility to it. But yeah, that's probably a touch big, maybe a touch heavy for EDC, but that thing is, it's sharp.
I love it.
Yeah, that's their TF24.
TF24. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Montana Knife Company. That's going to be front and center in my office for sure.
Don't cut yourself with it.
Yeah.
I've cut myself with almost every knife I own because I mess around with them.
We gave Emerson's as a holiday gift one year, and about half the team cut themselves, and I sliced myself well right
100%.
there.
And if they didn't do it then, let me tell you, when they're flipping it around and they're like,
Exactly.
Well, hell yeah. Thank you for your time, man, and thank you for making the travel up.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
really
my pleasure.
appreciate it.